to dispute it. This will not only potentially save you money, but also will help your provider spot fraud and protect customers in the future. If you've been a victim of the phone call, there's a please report it to your local authorities. When I say victim, not that somebody attempted necessarily, but you've actually looked at your phone bill and you've been charged. And some of these charges are like $200-300. We're not talking like 45 cents or $5. It's a significant amount. So that is one of the latest scams that's going on. We have another scam that is it's called the grant scam, where people will call you and say that you're eligible for some federal grant. They will attempt to get information from you because they'll say all you got to do is fill out these forms and the government will send you and give you money free. Well, there's no such free, nothing's free in this world, remember that. So be very careful of somebody who calls you and they call that the grant.
This web radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you.
Is that correct?
It is correct. So anyone that goes to ageinplace.org is going to be able to not only read the mission and the purpose from, the chest down. He wasn't able to move. Mm. And although he had lots and lots of wonderful caregivers, there was stories of
How do you know that have passed some kind of a background or license protocol? Well, with that, we're going to take a break. Of course, private, if you have a long-term care insurance.
Background check. Very important because a lot of the national criminal background checks are just a database.
4 hour a day?
At least a 4 hour shift.
Okay.
1 4 hour.
Is it a 6 month, 6 week, 30 day? How long is the contract?
There are no term, they don't have term lengths. So that's a very flexible part of this home care industry.
Well, I think so now that they're there, and now they're coming throughout the United States and the world about the advantages of, got to remind everybody, we want to thank you, Doug, for being here, and remind everybody elder abuse does not report itself. And with that, that'll be the end of today's session of the Safe Senior Hour with Joe Gavalis.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned in to America's Web Radio. I was just saying that we are
to GM at America's Web Radio. One number that I've never even heard of area codes that are into this. So please help us. If you see the IRS collecting like that, or a federal judge.
Never.
Mike Thies was one. He does business in see the IRS collecting like that, or a federal judge.
Never. Yeah, now.
I mean,
listen, and being able to sit here and talk to you guys, and this is, we're national, America's Web Radio.
This past weekend, we have the number one. Mike Thies was one. He does business in the classic car industry in England, and he's the one that found out and called Steve Ronaldo and said, "Hey, you're a star."
That's awesome.
In London.
Well, look at there, folks. So we're not just national; we're international. And I can believe that because, in England, I think they crave the V8. They crave that American freedom. And V8, when you're over in England, folks, if you ever get a chance and you can go visit Europe and you can go to England. There are some cool car nutheads, gearheads, I should say. Trust me, I call myself a nuthead with just some of the stuff that I tinker with, but there are gearheads in England, and it's pretty neat to see, and they love talking about American muscle. And that's what it's referred to, American muscle. And so if you walk around, you can walk around with pride. Because it's pretty neat. Because most of the times in Europe, when you're walking around, you're going to see these little cars that are about the size of your shoe. But I digress. But we're moving on. But that's just what the reach we have here at America's Web Radio, folks. So thanks to all of you who are listening, whether you're over the pond or you're here somewhere in these wonderful United States. And you're tuned in. Thanks so much for listening. So, okay, we're going to get, before I get down.
One other thing.
All right, one more thing.
One more thing. Please pass it on to your friends. We know that we're doing quite well with the car show, with Victor's show, and a number of others. But there's still people that have never heard of America's Web Radio. And we got a deal the other day that, noticed that people were listening and how much they appreciated the different shows that we have. So please, don't take it for granted that your best friend knows about America's Web Radio. Tell them about it, please. Thank you.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, folks. And you can do me and all the other hosts here a big favor by spreading the word. Not just On Point with Victor, but America's Web Radio, because we have some great shows here, and you can also always push the YouTube page and forward that. In fact, let's try something here. Let's do a drive today. Let's see how many of you listeners out there will take a second today, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram, or however you want to do it, and just send out a note saying, hey, check out the YouTube page, America's Web Radio, and maybe send out a note to your friends and say, hey, just check this out. Check out America's Web Radio, our YouTube page and our Facebook page, and let's see how many people we can get to go like that in the next 24 hours. That would be a little fun to see.
Brittany, I'm having some car work done, and I was checking with her yesterday and told her what I did. And she said, oh, well, I'm a conservative. I'll put it on my, and she did. She subscribed on the spot to YouTube, and on the spot she put our app on her telephone. So
excellent.
I mean, just
and that's another good point. You can download the app from the App Store, America's Web Radio, and then you can just open the app and listen to my wonderful voice or any of the other wonderful hosts at any time. Because you can listen to us live, folks, or you can listen to replays, because we will have the shows, they will be replayed, and you can go to americaswebradio.com and download the podcast and re-listen, or just listen to whenever you want. I know I have listeners out there that go, I can't believe Victor just said that, and they'll go back and they'll get the podcast and listen to it again just to make sure. But lots of ways to listen, folks. So thanks again, and please do spread the word. Let's see in the next 24 to 48 hours how many people we can get to go to the YouTube page, America's Web Radio, and like it and subscribe to it, and how many people will like the America's Web Radio page on Facebook. And while you're there, you can even find me, Victor Armendariz. You can find me on Facebook, and you can like me too, and I'll like you back, even if you're a liberal. I do have some liberal friends on my Facebook, folks, so why don't you join them? All right, so before I get into the topic rundown, the area code 410 happens to be Baltimore, Maryland. So of all places, since Baltimore was in the news, and I'm actually going to touch on that a little bit today. But let's get to the topic rundown, because there's so much to get to today. And I'm also, when we get close to the bottom of the hour, actually a little before the bottom of the hour, I'm going to bring in my Newt Gingrich. He's going to call in, and we're going to talk about a few things. So folks, we're right up against the first break, so you hang on tight. We're going to take a quick break, and when I get back, we're going to get into the topic rundown, starting with the Clintons, because they have struck again. We'll be right back.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This is On Point with Victor. I am Victor Armendariz. Okay, we're going to get right back into this topic rundown. I gotta touch on a few things. There's so much to talk about, and then I'm going to have a real treat because we've got Larry Galls calling in, and he's going to join us, and we're going to examine a few things that are going on in the news. This news cycle that I call a Hollywood movie, because you just can't make this stuff up. But one thing I want to touch on real quick, folks, that I'm sure all of you have heard that Jeffrey Epstein has assumed room temperature. And apparently this man was able to commit suicide. Now, if you are not familiar with Jeffrey Epstein, I'm not going to take a whole lot of time to get into what he is and what he's done, who he is and all that. You can look him up. But look up and what he was. But Jeffrey Epstein, to sum it up, was a pretty crappy, low kind of a guy. I mean, this guy, he was a pedophile. He was a known pedophile. Hollywood knew it. The left knew it. The media knew it. And the political establishment knew it. But this man was allowed to do a lot of bad things. And one of the biggest things he's known for is having a private island. And he had a private jet, and he would fly politicians and Hollywoodians into this island. And this island was known for having lots of girls, including underage girls. And people could go to this island, have different, let's just say, engage in different activities, some of these with women who were underage, and let's just face it, girls. And again, folks, this was known. And you do not have to take this from me. Look it up yourself. There's plenty of news articles out there. My goodness, Jeffrey Epstein was even brought on charges before, but released. And look, I just can't say it enough. Look it up for yourself, because what this guy was getting away with was ridiculous. And the fact that politicians knew what was going on, the media knew what was going on, Hollywood knew what was going on, and nothing was done. I mean, it's a shame. Lots of people were hurt by this guy. And now, when he was finally arrested and put in jail, he has been under suicide watch. Now, folks, he wasn't just under suicide watch because he was going to commit suicide. I don't think that danger was really there. This man was talking to his lawyers every day. He was spending time with his lawyers every day. His lawyers just put out a notice a week or two before his death, and I'm using quotes, air quotes, before his air quote suicide. His lawyers were putting out saying he's adjusting well. Epstein is adjusting well to his cell. He's adjusting well to the prison life. He's adjusting. You don't say things like that if you're planning suicide, unless you're in on it, maybe. But then you've got to look at the cell. If you look at this type of prison that he was in, first of all, there's nothing freely hanging from the ceiling to tie your rope. There's not going to be benches in there or anything for him to stand on. There's not going to be anything in that cell that he can tie around his neck. And if some of you are out there screaming, he had sheets, he had bed sheets, folks, look up the type of bed sheets in that type of prison. They're very, very thin and very flimsy, and I don't think, now I don't know this for sure, but logically, based on the type of sheets that are in there, they probably wouldn't hold his body weight. And then, even if they could, here's a man who's kind of elderly and maybe on the feeble side. How's he going to get his weight up there? How's he going to do that? It wasn't done alone. Let's just say, if there was a recording, we would probably hear something like, hey, Jeffrey, this is going to hurt just for a second, and it'll be over soon. That's probably what happened, folks, because to believe that he didn't have help, and I am not going to sit here and throw out conspiracy theories or anything like that. But I am going to point out a logical analysis of circumstantial evidence. And whenever there's enough circumstantial evidence out there, you kind of need to go that way and see what's there. There needs to be an investigation. And in fact, Attorney General Barr was so upset with what happened because apparently this guy was under 24-hour surveillance, a suicide watch. And somehow the officers that were supposed to be watching were told to, whether it was told to stand down or they were told to leave, they were told they didn't have to be there. There was a gap, and suddenly he's dead. So that alone is circumstantial. The other things I told you about the jail cell and the sheets and things, that's circumstantial. This is circumstantial evidence that warrants an investigation, and luckily Barr immediately put the FBI on the case, and they are investigating. Now, unfortunately, when things like this happen, and investigations, and I'm using air quotes again, starts, that's usually where the story is going to die. I hope that's not the case this time. I hope Attorney General Barr really gets to the bottom of this, because, folks, I joke about this because I say the Clintons have struck again, because you've got a media right now who's trying to place this at the feet of Donald Trump and Attorney General Barr. It's laughable to hear the media try and blame and put this on Barr and Trump as if they did something to cause the death of Epstein. Folks, you look at the history of Donald Trump and Attorney General Barr, and there is not a history of their circle of trust, people dying that have been in this circle and have left the circle. That's just not there. But if you go and you look at the Clintons and you just go do a little bit of digging yourself and a little bit of story, and again, I'm not saying the Clintons had anything to do with this, but what I am saying is if you look up, you will find more than 2, 3, 4, 5 stories of people who were within the Clinton circle who are now 6 feet in the wrong direction. Again, I am not saying what happened. I'm saying there's enough circumstantial evidence. And when I hear the media try and lay this at the feet of Donald Trump as if he's had a history of people dying around him, or as if Barr's had it, then I cannot sit here and not point out that the group of people who have had people dying around them would be the Clintons. And so I am just saying this has got to be an investigation that's got to happen. We need to find out how Epstein died. We need an autopsy. We need video, because there was not video, how amazingly, no video in the jail cell, but there was video on the outside of the jail cell. They can and will and do know who entered that jail cell and who exited the jail cell. This is information that we need to demand that it gets released. We need to demand to learn about this. So we need to allow this investigation to happen, but we as citizens need not stand by and let this investigation die. We're going to have to demand answers. And hey, look, folks, maybe he did die a normal way. pedophiles do seem to die, and air quotes, commit suicide in prison. It does happen. The other inmates, as as murderous as they can be, do seem to have a problem with other inmates who were pedophiles or known pedophiles. So, David, I think you have a comment.
Yeah, I do. We've all watched enough television. Excuse me. And we've watched enough other things that, you put a guy in jail that's potential suicidal or, well, basically suicidal, and one of the first things you do is you take his belt away, you take this away, you take anything that, you take his...
Anything that he could use.
Yeah, anything that he can use. You take away his dental floss because he can save up enough to climb down the side of the jail. But anyway...
Yeah, and you don't give him utensils.
You don't give him utensils, that's true. And you don't leave his bed with sheets on it.
Right.
What's the first thing you can do with a sheet? Turn it into a rope.
You try to turn it into a rope, which is why I mentioned before, and in a lot of those prisons, they use sheets that can't support weight or a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So there are questions that need to be asked, there's no doubt. So,
no doubt.
So, I'm going to deviate from my list here, and I'm going to bring in Larry. Are you on the phones?
Yeah, I'm here, Victor. Go ahead.
Excellent. So, folks, this is Larry Gauze calling in, and he is my Newt Gingrich. At least I like to call him Newt Gingrich. He's a killer consultant in political analysis, and I say consultant because one day Larry's going to start a company, and or maybe I'll help him, and it's going to be called Underdog Political Consultants.
Very nice.
But Larry, just real quick, just give me a quick take from your point of view on the Epstein story.
I was surprised it took so long. And I just thought that he's got too much information, and that they were going to have to silence him as far as the people in the establishment that was doing some bad things, and so I think right now the look should also be for the girl that was always soliciting the girls for him, because an old man goes up to a 14-year-old girl. Going to raise flags, going to draw attention. He had an assistant girl that would go and talk to these girls and bring them in. She's got all the information as far as who was doing what, where, and everything else. So they need to locate where she's at, because someone's going to find her, and she's going to be next Jimmy Hoffa if they don't get a hold of her.
Larry, that's a good point. I mean, it's a great point, and I don't really hear anyone in the mainstream media that are even mentioning this assistant, because you are absolutely right, and I cannot remember her name.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me or anything else, but I can try and look at it during break.
But he did have her, and she was used to recruit.
She was
women,
a recruiter and she
girls.
was a girlfriend, and she was she's the one. So it didn't draw attention to bring the girls in, because she's the one doing that.
Right.
But she was with him all the time. There's photos of her at all the parties with Epstein and socializing with everybody. So she knew. She was the one, it's kind of like the mama son, you would say, in the Philippines, who would run the house or whatever. She was the one in charge, coordinating everything and keeping it. So she knows everybody's name, and so they need to know where she's at.
Every bordello or house, so to speak, House of Women, has a house mom. And don't ask me how I know that. Larry told me. No, but that's one thing that you learn a lot. You learn in the military, and that's one thing you will see in movies that's actually correct. But if you just do a little reading on Bordeaux's and places like that,
watch that documentary on the guy from the Bunny Ranch in Vegas.
Yeah,
you have the one lady who's the house mom.
The house mom,
and she's the one that controls all the rooms, controls the money, makes sure the taxes are done. And all the girls go to her.
Right.
And everything else. So there's someone right. And so that one girl was the one who also was a recruiter.
Yeah, absolutely.
She has all the names, and I just think that she's going to be, she's going to be disappeared.
Well, that's another good point. To think that, the other thing that, and again, we'll make this quick and move on, but the other thing that people need to understand about Epstein is you can research Epstein and no one can really show you how he made his money. This guy was worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you can't find transactions where he was, it says he's a stock trader or he was a stock trader, but you can't find any substantial tradings that he did and where the money was coming from. So I surmise that he was being paid by some high-powered people because I think he was engaging in blackmail. I think that was his business. And Larry, I know you
I thought maybe it was more like a CIA or some, another, top-level spook type program, because people who do bad things hang around with other people who do bad things. And this gets an end that you can do recordings, you can get information as people talk casually, and you've got photos, and you got stuff that you can go turn people. And so this was allowed to happen. Because this fish is getting all these big fish, and that's what you need to do. So you just turn the other cheek while this is going on, because the bigger problem is this thing over here. We need the information on them. And so we're going to let this go on, the Epstein stuff go on, because he's getting us information that we can turn and use to get better things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good hypothesis, Larry. And I think it might be a combination. I do believe that, when you've got Hollywood elite and political elite, and let's face it, folks, the Democrat elite, there are some people that they were probably paying Epstein a lot, including Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is on record 26 times visiting that island by way of Epstein's jet. So just imagine in your mind what's going on that jet from here to there, and then what's going on in that island. So just look, folks, these are questions that need to be asked. We need to stop letting things like this happen and just sitting by going, well, we don't want to be called conspiracy kooks, or we don't want the media to make fun of us. It's about time that we stand up and tell the media a thing or two, or tell them where they can go, because we've got to stop being afraid of being made fun of by the media, and we've got to stop being afraid of being called a racist, which is another topic, Larry, I want to get to in a minute. But Larry, real quick, the next on the topic rundown here I wanted to mention was what's going on in China right now. There is a little uprising going on in Hong Kong, and folks, we're going to go to our bottom of the hour break here, but Larry, ponder that. Folks out there, just ponder this. There's an uprising going on in Hong Kong, and I want you to tell me what flag they're waving around. We will be right back.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's DOCS, the number 4, patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
You are listening to America's Web Radio. This is On Point with Victor. We are discussing a few items here, but when I left you at the bottom of this break, I was telling you about what's going on in Hong Kong. There's kind of an uprising going on because the mainland China, the communist China, are trying to crack down on Hong Kong. And there's some riots going on. Well, I shouldn't say riots. There's just some protests going on. And the people in Hong Kong are waving around a flag. Larry, do you want to take a guess of which flag they're waving?
Well, it's the American flag.
Absolutely.
And you know, don't you wish how much you want to bet they wish they had the Second Amendment there?
Without a doubt, without a doubt, and that's a great point, Larry, because they don't have the Second Amendment there. These people are standing up, and now, when I left the news this morning, the riot police were starting to move in on these protesters, and to sum it up real quick for you, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, hardline China is trying to move in on Hong Kong and take away some of their freedoms. That's bottom line, no sugarcoating. That's the goal. There's a lot of freedom going on in Hong Kong, and you can just look at the difference of mainland China versus Hong Kong. And they are trying to put in some influence, which is going to lead to less freedoms. And the people of Hong Kong know this. And what flag do they choose? The United States. I venture to tell you, there's no one in Hong Kong kneeling at the site of the United States flag. They're holding it as proud as an American should hold it. And you know, that gives me pride, Larry. It gives me pride to know that still, where there's oppression in this world, the people will turn to the flag of the United States of America, and it just makes my chest swell. What do you think?
Exactly. I mean, this whole thing started back when China had passed. That was in February. They were passing some ordinance that the Chinese government could extradite people with suspicions, whatever, which goes to your red flag laws. All of a sudden, they have a suspicion, and boom, they're going to extradite. We're here, the red flag law. They have a suspicion of you, and they're going to take away your rights, your guns.
Yep.
So here's this protest. Every one of those protesters, I mean, they're standing strong, and they're at risk of life real easy because none of them have guns. And you know that if they had guns, it'd be a completely different battle going with the Chinese government.
Huge different battle going on. The Chinese government would be trying to play ball. And Larry, those are some great points. As usual, and this is why I call you my Newt Gingrich, because I was going to get to the red flag laws. You are 100% correct, Larry, in that. And this is what drives me crazy. In fact, one of the topics today that I was going to get to, or am going to get to, is the air quotes, just do something establishment. Because right now you've got a Congress it's the leftist socialist Democrats with the aid of the establishment Republicans are in the do something mode. And what I mean by that, and I'm using quotes, do something mode, is that Congress right now is sitting around going, we got to do something about the shootings. Not let's sit down and actually have a discussion on what we can do to actually help people and actually really stop these evil people from doing this, or how can we get involved in mental health and catch these people before they do these acts of violence. No, we're not talking about that. We're in a just do something mode, which is going to lead to taking away rights. It's going to be taking away and infringing on God-given rights that the American citizen has. And Larry, you are so right to point out that what China is trying to do to Hong Kong is the equivalent of what the Congress is trying to do with red flag laws.
Right, there's no proof. And I mean, the people who use no proof type laws like a red flag are like China, Cuba, Russia.
Yes.
No, and that's
Absolutely.
not what we want here.
Because Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but with red flag laws, there's due process is thrown right out the window.
Correct. You can have the police that can make a statement, or people can make an anonymous call, and there's no punishment for the person who made the false report.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no burden proof. We just need to not do a red flag. We already have laws in place that you look at the Parkland shooting, and if the police would have followed the procedures that were in place, or the school and the county and everything else, then you wouldn't have had this issue. So these red flags wouldn't have changed what happened.
Well, that's another.
They didn't follow the procedures anyway, so it's not different.
Well, that's another good point, Larry. There's all kinds of laws on the books right now that if we would just enforce and just follow protocol,
a lot of be alive. Follow protocol.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's true. It's a good point. But look what the government tries to do. Inherently.
Here's a couple things I wanted to go real quick on. If you look at since 1993, school violence is down by 33%.
Mm-hmm.
Gun homicides are down by 49%. Gun crime is down by 79%, and yet we still want to take away more guns. And this is since 1993 till now. That's what the statistics are showing. I
Larry,
did more research. You got 10 people on average die a day in pools. 75% of them are children.
you've got 50
You got
plus.
opioid deaths in 2016 alone was 42,000. Homicides in 2016 was 19,000.
And
But opioid deaths was 42,000.
Absolutely.
Kids are safer today than they were in 1990. Today than in 1990.
In 1990.
We're 4 times safer.
Wow.
And then the last thing is with go kind of immigration. I was going to go to that. MS-13 kills more people than mass shooters do, and every one of their guns are illegal.
Everyone, including themselves. I mean, most of the MS-13 gang members are illegal themselves. Larry, you bring me to the next topic on the topic rundown. No, you are doing great. It's as if you have my show notes.
All right.
You know what they say, Larry, great minds, we think alike. So, Larry, you bring me to another point where, and here's a question I'll pose, and then I'm going to give the answers. Number one, and this is the latest FBI murder statistics. So, Larry, you hit this nail right on the head. So, folks, listen and ponder this. The latest FBI murder statistics. Number one, how many times were rifles used to murder people in all of 2017? 403. 403. And a very, very small percentage of those 403 incidents with rifles could be considered an assault rifle, because they weren't that type of rifle that has been deemed assault rifle. So that was a small percentage. Now, Larry, get a load of this, and ladies and gentlemen, just listen to this. How many knives or cutting instruments were used to murder someone that same year? 1,591. So you've got 403 murders committed by some type of rifle versus 1,591 in that same 12-month period, 1,591 deaths by a knife or some type of cutting instrument. So, Larry, I ask the logical, on-point, common-sense question, where's the call to ban knives?
Or even just hammers are used more than guns.
You know what? There you go again, Larry. So, number 3.
Oh, okay.
How many blunt objects, and that's clubs, that's hammers, were used? The answer, that same year, 12-month period, 467. So you are more likely to die at the hands of a murderer using a hammer, a club, a bat, or a knife, or some other cutting instrument than you are from a rifle. But yet, Larry, what are they going after?
Well, there's a gentleman by the name of Mark Robinson, and he gave a speech in April of 2018 to the Greensboro City Council. And I can play it, but I mean, everyone should go listen to him, because he talks about how why are you taking away my rights? Mm-hmm. What about the people who are causing this? That's what you need to be going at, but you want to come after my rights. And it's about a 4-minute speech that he gives to him. He's very passionate, and it's really, really good. And so I recommend everybody just look at the Mark Robinson City Council and listen to his. It's a 5-minute video or whatever, and it's just him talking about protecting his rights, and it's just really good.
And they could probably find that on YouTube, right?
Absolutely. I've got it keyed up, but I didn't want to take the show on. I'll just listen.
Well, no, that's okay. We'll get everybody to go listen to that. I actually am familiar with that, Larry, and you're absolutely right. It's a great emotional speech that he gave. And that's the point, isn't it, Larry, that when you have a socialist-leaning government like we have right now, every time there's a crisis or something, they don't move to protect the people, they move to take away the rights of the individual. And that's a problem, Larry. That is a problem where we need to start standing up.
Well, look at who has the toughest gun rights anywhere is Chicago, and they have the most homicides.
Yes.
So it's like your laws that you're trying to propose aren't working.
Right. I mean, and again, this is one of those points where we, as whether you're a conservative or you're a libertarian or you're an independent or a constitutionalist or whatever you call yourselves, and by gosh, even if you're an old school Democrat, you should be standing up right now fighting for the Constitution. We should stand up and stop being afraid of the word racist. The word racist has been completely bastardized and doesn't even have a meaning anymore. I mean, Larry, have we not reached a point to where today's left, today's Democrats, and along with the help of the mainstream media, if you so much as disagree with part of their agenda, you're a racist.
Yeah, I don't. I make people explain how on that, because I try and stick just to the facts that are on point. But they want to shut down the argument, and I think whenever someone points out, you just need to take it back and say you need to apologize, and let's stick to the facts of what we're talking about.
Well, you know, Larry, I have a little saying that I like to say, that whenever I'm in a debate with a Democrat or liberal or a socialist, as soon as they call me a racist, I know I've won the debate.
That's true.
And that's what it's gotten to, Larry. And folks, just start paying attention around you. Now they're calling black people and Hispanics and Asian. We're all racist if we disagree.
You have to fight back, because I remember when I did, because I don't do social media anymore or anything else, but back in when we ran together, I forget, someone called, man, we were talking about gun control or some rules, and I was having a conversation on this person's page, and she said, the person whose page it was said, you guys don't need to listen to him, he's just a racist, whatever. And I immediately was up and I just fired back. You owe me to, I've stuck to facts, and I just list everything, and you go back to your page, you look back on all this stuff I've already said, and it's always been fact-driven. I give you websites, I give you my resource, and for you to call that a dotted line, and you owe me an apology. And I insisted on it, and the person did come back, because they weren't expecting someone to fire back so hard.
Well, that's...
So you've got to fire everybody. If you get called, you've got to fire back and don't let people get away with it.
That is great advice, Larry. So on that note, hang on right there. We're going to go to our next break, folks. You're listening to On Point with Victor. This is America's Web Radio. We'll be right back.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
This is Ron Camacho, host of the Business Hour, on Fridays from 10 to 11 a.m. Join me as I talk with passionate professionals on a program that profiles the best businesses, business professionals, business practices, and fascinating individuals to get an insider view of how America works. 10 to 11 a.m. on America's Web Radio.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So we had caller Larry. Are you still there?
Yeah, I've got 2 more minutes, right?
Yeah, I know you've got to run pretty quick here, Larry. But just before you head out, anything else you wanted to touch on? I know we had a bunch of things we wanted to talk about. In fact, Larry, I wanted to, maybe you can touch on this real quick, Larry. I think what's going on in Baltimore and in all the inner cities, which are run by Democrats and have been run by Democrats for 40-plus years, I think Trump has an awesome opportunity. What do you think?
Well, I think so. And one thing people get back to self-reliance, where you look at conservatives. You had over this weekend or 2 weekends ago, volunteers who were Trump supporters. There's like 28 of them, I think, or under 30, went to clean up an area of Baltimore, and they had 3 dumpsters delivered, and they picked up over 12,000 pounds worth of trash between the 28 people, under 30 people in that day or that weekend. None of the residents helped, and I kind of go back to that movie with Clint Eastwood on Gran Torino, when he's looking at, he's keeping his house, and everybody's coming in, and you have from all the different parts of the world coming in and living, and they depend on government to take care of things. They weren't taking pride in their own place. because it was new to them. They didn't have places this nice, and they weren't taking care of it. And he's keeping his place up, and then he had the one kid go and start fixing, and then people started taking care of their place now because they have to do it themselves. And I think you had the problem with Baltimore is when that cleanup happened, nobody helped these volunteers that were residents there. It was just the volunteers doing it who don't live there. They're trying to help you out, and they're not. And the people who are living in it aren't having any self-respect or taking the self-reliance to take care of their area as well. They're saying it's the government needs to do this. The government needs that. Take some initiative and also keep it up yourself.
Well, that's a great point, Larry, and that's
so that hits home with the Gran Torino.
Yeah.
And list, here we're going to clean it up, and then all the houses that street was looking good.
Yep. And that's a great example. I love that movie, but I love Clint Eastwood. But it's true, Larry, and that gets down to whether it's in the home or problems with education. But when you have a class that has become completely dependent on the government, and make no mistake, the Democrat-run inner cities have put out policies to create dependency and keep you in that dependent role. Because if there is no dependent role, there are no Democrat votes. I mean, let's just face it, folks. Self-reliant people don't usually vote for Democrats unless you're an elitist and you're just afraid of the government. But we've got this problem in the inner cities where there's no pride being taken in the neighborhood because they're told, well, the government's going to fix that.
They're not taking ownership.
They're not taking ownership. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and you see that with regular work. They'll say, hey, I've got to go pick up my daughter. Thanks for letting me call in. It's a wonderful show.
Hey, you bet, Larry. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So, folks, I mean, it's just there's so many things that we can look at that go to this whole problem that I speak about frequently of dependence and creating dependence. If you just look throughout history, look wherever socialism is being tried or socialism is being done, it never works. But to do it, you've got to oppress people. The very people that socialism says it's helping, the very people that socialism will sugarcoat their words so that the people think that they're going to be helped are the people who get helped the least. The only people who are wealthy under socialism are the elitist, the elite political crowd, the elite Hollywood or elite corporate crowd. Whoever plays ball with the socialist elite, they're going to be in that elitist circle. But you, the people, will always be looked at as the peasant. And I'm not making this stuff up. You can look it up in history. We're not taught history anymore. I just beg of you to just do some research, and for all intents and purposes, use DuckDuckGo sometimes to do some research, because Google, you really, really have to dig with Google. Google will bury historical stories. They will bury, or they will always put the left-leaning story up first. They're always going to put the left-leaning revisionist history first. And if you don't believe me, just do an experiment. Go to Google and research. Think of some historical thing. Look up Jeffrey Epstein, maybe. But look up something in history. Look, I'll tell you what. Maybe Google who was the only president, or what was the only time in the United States history where people were rounded up on the basis of their race. Look that up and see what Google pops up and see what DuckDuckGo pops up, because folks, we do have a time in our not so long ago past where in this country people were rounded up on the basis of race. And I'm going to tell you who did it. It was the progressive hero president Franklin D. Roosevelt. That's the only time in history that we, or a president or an administration in this country, the United States, rounded up people on the basis of their race and put them in a camp. That happened, folks, and that happened by a progressive Democrat president by the name of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Look it up if you don't believe me, because it's all there in history. This was back after Pearl Harbor was hit. He rounded up and basically stomped on the rights of the constitutional rights of Japanese citizens. Look it up, folks. Not making it up. We don't make up stuff here at On Point with Victor, and if I do make something up, I'll tell you that I'm making it up. but no, I'm dead serious. Look it up. So, just as we start to reach the end of the show here, gosh, we had so much to get into. Let me touch on something else. So another big item over the weekend, there was an election in Guatemala. Now listen, folks, I mean, lean into your radios here, lean into your cell phones, squeeze those AirPods on a little tighter. There was an election in Guatemala. And guess what group of people are upset about the deal that Trump made with the leaders of Guatemala and the leaders of Mexico? Guess who's upset over the weekend and showed it through their voting? The people of Guatemala. They're upset with the deal that Trump made with the Guatemalan leaders and with the Mexican leaders. Now you're asking me, what was that deal? Well, this was the deal that Trump made, requiring that the people, or let's face it, the illegal immigrants, the illegal migrants who are moving around from Honduras and El Salvador, he made a deal where now Guatemala has to accept and allow more of these migrants to seek asylum in Guatemala. So they have to seek it there before they make it to Mexico and try and seek it there, which means they're going to come here and seek it here. So Guatemala, the leaders of Guatemala made the deal with President Trump that will allow people from El Salvador and Honduras to seek asylum in Guatemala first. Well, this is not sitting well with the people of Guatemala. So I ask you to pay attention to CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, all the news outlets, especially the lamestream media. And I'm still waiting for them to call the people of Guatemala racist, because I haven't heard it yet. Because if you stand in this country and we say, hey, we've got to do something about the illegal migrant problem, you're immediately called a racist. I will be called I've been called a racist, and I'm freaking Mexican descent. I had a listener that just sent a message here that was born in Mexico. He was called a racist on more than one occasion, and then he happily and with a smile on his face, I'm sure he does what I do. Well, in his case, he puts a smile on his face and goes, "Let me tell you where I was born." And then they back off the racism thing. But now, folks, the way things are going, the way they're throwing around the racist word, it just doesn't matter. You're just a racist. If you're a black conservative, you're a racist. If you're a Hispanic conservative, you're a racist. If you're a black person who just absolutely supports individual rights, you're a racist. If you're Hispanic and you support individual rights, you're a racist. I mean, this is ridiculous, folks. Absolutely ridiculous. But I point this out, what happened in Guatemala, because the people of Guatemala don't want a flood of illegals either. And I haven't seen anywhere in the media yet where they've called the people of Guatemala racist. But if there was a Guatemalan American citizen here standing with me today going, I'm a citizen now of the United States and I believe in a strong border, well, by golly, that Guatemala would be called a racist. I guarantee it. So, because we're seeing it happen every day. And it just really, really irritates me, but I had to point that out because it's just kind of funny when people of Guatemala are standing up going, hey, wait a minute. We don't want all these illegals from Honduras coming here. We don't want all the illegals from Honduras and El Salvador coming here. They don't want to be flooded, people, ladies and gentlemen, because they have a culture that they're trying to keep. Mexico has a culture they want to keep, and by golly, the United States has a culture. But we in the United States are a culture of acceptance. We do accept immigrants happily, and we'll accept them as long as they want to assimilate. So I'm going to have to leave it there, folks, but boy, there's so much more we could get into. So you're going to have to tune in next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. It's been great, and we'll be back next week. You've been listening to On Point with Victor, America's Web Radio.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome. This is the Locked and Loaded Show. I am Roger B., and you're listening to America's Web Radio. Today we're going to talk about guns, gun laws, accessories with guns, more guns, people who use guns for good things, and people who are trying to take our guns away.
Just once I want to hear you come in and go, guns, guns, guns.
Only when it's a gun show weekend.
Hey, Roger, real quick, before I bug out.
Sure, Victor. This is Victor from On Point with Victor, in case you're wondering.
If you'll allow me, I know you're going to talk about red flag laws today.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That is awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to what Roger's going to tell you. But Roger, I wanted to give you the latest FBI statistics, murder statistics. These are the latest FBI murder statistics for the United States.
Can I assume the liberals do not want you to tell these?
They do not want me to say this, but I want your listeners to hear this. So, murders by rifle. And this is just any kind of rifle. And keep in mind, a small percentage of these murders by rifles were committed by an assault rifle. And I'm using air quotes.
No such thing, no such thing.
Exactly. So, murders by rifle, 403.
Oh my God.
Okay? Now, compare that to murders by knives or cutting instrument, some type of cutting instrument, 1,591.
So more than 3 times the number.
More than 3 times the number of killed
with
by
knives.
Well,
we're obviously on the wrong track here.
Exactly, and then this is just even going to make listeners more mad at politicians. If we factor in how many people were killed by a bludgeoning object, a bat, a hammer, a blunt instrument, a hammer, a bat, 467.
So it's about still a few more.
Still more, though. So the point is, while our ridiculous Congress right now is falling over themselves to do something in the name of red flag laws, in the name of let's go.
Apparently, we need to have background checks at Home Depot and Lowe's.
Apparently so. So I just wanted to leave your listeners with that bit of information, Roger.
Well, that's good to know. There's another stat that was interesting. 88,000 people a year are killed in alcohol-related incidences.
Wow.
88, that's more than 10 times the amount of people killed with guns.
So are we going to ban alcohol again, or are we going to ban cars?
Where's the outrage? Why isn't the media fawning over this? 88,000, 10 times the number of people killed in alcohol-related incidences over guns.
And at what point does alcohol become racist? Just saying.
Well, yeah, it should be, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, it's funny because people, I go, well, what purpose does alcohol serve other than to dull your senses a little bit, impair your judgment, make you feel better or worse the next day? So it actually has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And yeah, you're going to say, oh, well, red wine is good for this. Well, you know what? You can get all the same qualities with grape juice without the wine part, so don't give me that.
That's true.
Oh, you're going to tell me, well, millions of people a day use alcohol and nobody dies from it. Well, you know what? Millions of people use guns every day and nobody dies from them. So that's an argument that's just not going to hold any water. Or maybe we should go with the... I believe the latest argument now from the left side of things is that only women should be allowed to make or institute laws about abortion because they have the ability to make babies, which is fine, okay. I don't have an issue with that. But then by the same token, only people who own handguns or rifles should be allowed to make laws concerning guns because they're the people who own them. They're the people who have them. Anybody else shouldn't be able to make laws about it. They don't own it. Same thing with the abortion law. So if you're going to apply logic of this type to an argument, make sure it goes both ways. Otherwise, you're just making yourself look stupid, which for some people in politics is not very hard. Actually, in most people in politics, it's not that difficult. Okay, today they're going to get into a few things that should just make your head explode. You should get angry, you should get upset, you should be scared to death, because this is happening. This is not a maybe, this is not a possibility, this is happening. Red flag laws are coming out everywhere. In fact, even President Trump has mentioned that he would not be opposed to passing red flag laws if he could come up with a way to institute them or a way to make them what he considers reasonable. And now, of course, this is Trump, so he may say something, but then turn around and play it against somebody else, or see who bites and see who jumps on, and then turn around and call them names. But we're going to have to see what happens here, because I hope he doesn't fall into this trap of being convinced that red flag laws are the way to go, because they are not. Red flag laws are just a way to get anybody in trouble for any reason possible. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but it's not going to be good. I can tell you that. It's only going to get worse. And so far, this week actually, this past week, the 15th state has passed red flag laws. And that 15th state was Colorado. Now, their law is pretty controversial in that many of the law enforcement officials in the state do not deem it constitutional and are making threats to not enforce it and not work with it. Now, I just kind of wonder, if the law enforcement officials don't want to work with it, how on earth are you going to try and enforce these things? Are you going to have to fire all the policemen who won't violate the Constitution to enforce your laws? Replace them with somebody who will? It seems like every time that happens in politics, everyone just goes crazy and says you're trying to, get an agenda passed. Well, maybe that's what they're trying to do in Colorado. But anyway, they became the 15th state this past Friday to adopt red flag laws, which allows firearms to be seized from people determined to pose a danger. And this is just weeks after all the county sheriffs vowed not to enforce them. So apparently they didn't take the county sheriff's opinion very seriously. Now, the law did not receive one single Republican vote. So that's good. At least one party still believes in the Constitution. And if we need to change it, then we need to change it, but we have to go through the proper channels. You can't just decide you're going to change the Constitution and make laws around it and pretend like it doesn't exist. In fact, one of the sheriffs pointed out that this was a throwback to the 2002 Tom Cruise movie called Minority Report, where they actually had psychics getting visions of people committing crimes, and they arrested and prosecuted them prior to them committing the crime. Because they said, oh yeah, these psychics saw you were going to do this in the future, so we're going to arrest you now and punish you for this. And that's about what we're coming to now. We're coming to the fact where people are just going to be pointed out, accused, with no advantages whatsoever except to the people who are accusing them. What this is going to do, it's treating gun owners like criminals without them having done a single thing. It also is going to discourage individuals from seeking mental health help if they need it, because once you get help and there's any record of it, then you're going to be on a list, I would imagine, to where you could be potentially told you cannot own guns, or we're going to take your guns away because you received some help for some mental health issue. It could be something as simple as, a little depression after a death in the family, but it doesn't matter. You receive help for a mental health issue, you might be put on a red flag list. So it's going to discourage people from even wanting to seek any help. And besides, anyone who's disturbed enough to kill a bunch of people is not going to be threatened by the fact they can't have a gun. They're going to go out and find another way to do it. They'll use knives, poisons, explosives, cars, rental trucks, lawn equipment. What is it? Rand Paul was mowing his lawn when his neighbor attacked him because he didn't like him. I don't know if he used any yard tools or not, but it would seem likely. So you're not going to stop somebody by telling them they can't have one way to do it, because, unfortunately, evil exists, and some people will act on it even against society's better judgment. But, and then these county sheriffs are saying, the Colorado sheriff said he'd rather go to jail than enforce an unconstitutional gun law. So I just wonder where this is going to come to a head. Where's the battle going to come? Where's the original fights over this going to start? I mean, are people just going to start pointing at each other left and right saying, oh, he's crazy, you can take his guns away. Oh, no, he's the crazy one, you can take his guns away. And the thing is, it's going to happen, they say, a preponderance of evidence. How is that going to be determined by people who are not professionals in the field? By not having people who are mental health professionals, or even, it's going to be done by coworkers. It's going to become by a bad Tinder date. It's going to be able to tell him, take his guns away, I don't like him.
There's going to be family split because of it, and there'll be family killings because of it. Because your ex-wife or your wife or your brother-in-law or whoever the hell else can say, well, Roger has a bunch of guns and he must be nuts.
I did have a bunch of guns up until that horrible boating accident a few weeks ago.
But you know what I'm saying, and then you're going to go after your brother-in-law, or your brother-in-law is going to go after you after you've had his guns taken away. And I mean, this thing, if you know, it's like everything else, Roger, that our laws are knee-jerk reactions in many cases.
Emotion over intellect.
And you think about something like this, and it's not the answer. There is, in my opinion, there is no answer other than education and working. But to say anybody can throw anybody in jail or get their guns taken away is just absurd.
Oh yeah, it's just like, you know, the Salem witch trials or McCarthy back in the 50s. He's a communist, she's a communist, he's a witch, she's a witch.
Yeah.
And you're just going to be able to take rights away from people. And normally the Constitution stands in the way of that. And I'm going to get into that a little later. How many constitutional amendments red flag laws violate? Because everyone's going on and on about the Second Amendment, but there are about 5 others that are violated by red flag laws. They're unconstitutional on a whole new level, but because people are valuing potential safety over freedom, they're going to choose to go that road. And if you want complete safety, you want to be cared for all the time, you want to have 3 meals a day and a place to sleep, all you have to do is get arrested. They'll take care of all that for you. They'll put you in a nice federal prison or state prison, and they'll take care of everything.
Oh no, they put you in a federal pen and they give you sheets and you can hang yourself.
Yeah, I heard about that. You know, I heard the medical examiner was on a break, and Epstein cremated himself while he was out on a lunch break.
With a Zippo?
Yeah, I don't know. He was already dead, so we're talking about what he is. Maybe spontaneously combusted. Yeah, oh yeah, that's. I hope Attorney General Barr comes down and rips that wide open and finds out what's going on there. Because, you know, I know, what is it, the Clintons have, I don't care who you are, they have 56 people they know who committed suicide. That seems a little extreme in anybody's book.
Wouldn't want to be their friend, huh?
Oh, no. In fact, I marked myself safe from the Clintons today with my blue flag on Facebook. So I'm good. But yeah, so these red flag laws are nothing. These are black flag laws. They are going to cause so much trouble. And the fact that they violate the Constitution in so many ways is just ridiculous. Now, the sheriff's saying there's a 50-50 chance of accuracy in this. So you might as well just shoot craps, you know, or, you know, play roulette. You're going to have about the same chance. It's like the flip of a coin. Now, the gun seizure could be up to 364 days. And gun owners can only retain their guns if they meet a burden of demonstrating by clear and convincing evidence, a much higher standard than normal people, that they're in fact not a threat. So they're basically guilty until proven innocent. That's how the framework is coming out right now. They're just, like David said, the knee-jerk reaction is to take everything away and sort it out later. And that's never a good idea when you don't follow the law to do what you want to do.
Some very astute lady, I've forgotten what position she holds today, said, let's pass it and then we'll read it.
Oh yeah, we have to pass it so you can see what's in it. Oh, and we put these people in office. Well, not me in particular, but there are people who vote for these people, and they do it over and over and over again. I cannot believe these people are there for 30 or 40 or 50 years. Completely ridiculous. But now one of the big pushes for the Colorado law. Well, I just got the break signal. We're coming back in a couple of minutes. I am Roger B. This is Locked and Loaded, and you're listening to America's Web Radio.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Whether cruising the Strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
Quick Stakes, that's Q-U-I-K Stakes, are not just for surveyors. They are great for family and community gardens. Go online to www.quickstake.com or contact your local land surveying supply dealer and get you a box of Quick Stakes. You'll love them every year when you plant your garden. Again, that's Quick Stakes, Q-U-I-K Stakes, the truly preferred way to stake and identify what's in your garden now.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening. You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome back. This is the Locked and Loaded Show. I am Roger B., and you're listening to America's Web Radio. Now, if you have any questions or you want to make a comment, I do have an email address, roger@americaswebradio.com. So you can certainly send an email. If you have a topic you would like to see discussed, send me an email. That would be fine. Now, you can find us on Facebook at America's Web Radio. You can also find us on YouTube if you actually want to watch the broadcast, which I don't know why anybody would. Most of the guys around here have a face for radio. I know I do. But if you have a desire, maybe you can just not watch and listen. And most of the broadcasts are available also to hear again later if you go to americaswebradio.com. So you can download them and listen to them later if you have any desire to do that. But it's always better when you listen live. So Colorado, 15th state to pass a red flag law. One of the big proponents of this was somebody whose son had been killed in the Aurora Theater in 2012. Now, I understand his grief. I mean, a terrible person came in and committed a horrific crime. But to be able to punish everybody for the crimes of a few people is just, it's not the way things should be done. It's like Victor was saying earlier, 432 people killed in a year with a rifle of any type. Now, that includes hunting accidents, suicides. Now, I don't know how you would suicide with a rifle. I'm sure the Clintons could figure it out. But, yeah, it's going to happen. And so he's going to turn around and take this as a reason to punish everybody or possibly punish anyone in the state that he feels or someone could point to and say, oh, they're bad. Now this, I've actually, there was a story about this. A guy had driven into a parking lot with his Jeep. A lady called the police on him because she told the police he had a big assault rifle strapped to the front of his Jeep. The police get there. He's got a large off-road jack on the hood of his Jeep. Not a rifle, not a gun, not even a bow and arrow. He's got a jack to lift his car up in case he needs to change a tire. And this lady was so ignorant, she just assumed because it was made out of metal and jagged or had teeth on it, it was some sort of weapon. So, this is the kind of people we're giving power to accuse people in the red flag law cases. Now, what if she had known him as a neighbor and saw him drive up every day and just assumed that was a giant rifle strapped to his Jeep and said he had guns, he needs to have them taken away, he's crazy driving around, he drives around with guns all the time. They wouldn't even have to check. They wouldn't have to verify anything she said necessarily. They would just go in, no warrant needed, no proof. They would just go in, remove the guy's guns from his house. He would have no idea what he's done wrong at this point, and he would just be the victim of basically an accusation crime, a false accusation crime.
Maybe it was a martyr.
Yeah, that's what we need, somebody who's of means who could actually take this up and fight back against it. But it's coming everywhere. I mean, 15 states out of 50 have already passed it. So it's coming. So don't wait for it to come to your state. If you have a way to start fighting it, tell people about it. Make them realize how dangerous this is. That anybody can accuse basically anyone, any acquaintance, anybody they know or anybody they think they know, they can accuse of being unstable or possibly mentally ill, having an issue where they would have to take their guns away. Now in Colorado, from what I understand, it can be almost anybody. It can be somebody you had an affair with, anybody you had a relationship with. If you had a bad Tinder date, they can call and have your guns taken away if they said you talked about guns too much or made any kind of threats toward them. So it's just, it's like the sheriff said, the Minority Report. They're accusing you of crimes, punishing you prior to any actual evidence coming out other than somebody who's willing to testify or make a point to. Let's just take away just in case. And then you come down to a matter of, if you want security, you don't want to live in freedom. Freedom can be dangerous. Security is always safer, but it's more restrictive. You want to put someone else in charge of your safety? You want to put somebody else in charge of taking care of you? That's fine. There are places you can do that. There are countries you can move to. Like say, get arrested, they would take care of everything for you. That is a democratic utopia. They take care of the food, the lodging, they take care of all your medical needs, and you don't have to do anything but stay there. So go ahead, get arrested, get in there, see how socialism works for you. So once they remove the guns, then you have to prove that you're not this person who somebody said you were. And I don't even know if you're allowed to face your accuser in this case. I don't know if they can remain anonymous or not. I was unable to find anything on that. But if there's anonymity here, this can be, anybody can accuse anybody anytime and hide under the guise of the anonymity. And it could be for any reason. Last week we actually discussed politicians revoking a judge's pistol permit because he didn't like some things he said about the city council. So this is going to be used for political gain as well. Imagine two political opponents, one turns the other one in under red flag laws, gets his guns taken away, then he turns around and claims the guy is unstable or not capable of owning guns. Why would you want that guy, in office? Or why would you possibly vote for him? So this is going to become a political weapon. There's no reason why it won't be, because politicians will use anything at their disposal to get what they want. So here we go. Okay. But now in California, they've had red flag laws for a while now, and now they're expanding the red flag laws. They're adding other people who can testify as to your incompetence or your possible mental instability. And these people, let's see, I've got a list here. They added, the current law was 2014. Now they just passed this year, and this includes school employees such as guidance counselors, teachers, employers, and coworkers of a subject. So if you don't get along with a coworker and you turn around and say, that guy's crazy, he has guns, I heard him say he was going to do this or that, boom, they can take guns away based on the testimony of a coworker because he doesn't like you. Now, will it happen? I've seen worse things happen with less motivation than this, so it's going to be there. It's going to take place, and there's almost nothing we can do to stop it at this point. But we'll try. That's all we can do is try. Educate people, educate your friends, educate your family. Let them know this is not the way things need to be done. We have a constitution, we have the laws, we need to follow those laws. But let's get off this for just a second because I have a couple of good stories. I don't want to make this all doom and gloom, but we're going to come back to it because we have to go over the full list of constitutional rights that red flag laws violate. But meanwhile, a couple months ago in Florida, a law passed allowing teachers to carry guns in the classrooms. Now, this is something legislators passed after the Parkland shooting. So now school districts across the state can take part in a voluntary guardian program, which will arm teachers after they pass a 144-hour training course. So these are not going to be people that they just hand guns to and say, here you go, here's your change from your lunch money, and here's your gun, go guard the students. These people are going to have 144 hours of training prior to being able to carry a weapon in a classroom. Now, I would imagine most of the teachers who get involved with this are going to be people who are enthusiasts or have some experience prior to this. And if not, they will get 144 hours worth of training. I mean, that's like if you were figuring 8-hour work days, what is that? That's over 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks of solid training day in and day out for 8 hours for 3.5 weeks. Now, that's not enough to make you an expert necessarily, but you will be trained enough to where you should know what you're doing. And if you continue the training after that, that's where you're really going to have the advantage. Besides, we all know, I mean, it's been said 100 times before, but it bears repeating. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I don't care who you are. If you don't believe in guns, that's fine. That's your right. You don't have to believe in God either. That's your right. This is America. You can believe what you want. But someone's breaking into your house at 3 in the morning, the first thing you're going to do is call somebody with a gun and pray he gets there in time. So yeah, you don't believe until you have to. In fact, I've always thought the way to turn a liberal into a conservative is one good mugging. He gets mugged once or twice, oh yeah, he'll change his mind on guns. In fact, that happened to a city councilman, I think it was up in Chicago, had a gang shooting in his neighborhood, a drive-by, and there were bullets flying everywhere in a neighborhood he lived in, which apparently he thought was safer than that. And after that happened, he urged people, get your permit, get a gun, learn how to use it, protect yourself. That's the only thing that you can do. I can only imagine this Democrat politicians had an epiphany and decided that, you know what, all these people have been talking about this, they're right. The only way I could have stopped this is if I had a weapon. And I don't believe he did at the time, but I bet he's changed his mind now. I can almost guarantee he's getting training, he's getting a weapon, he's learning how to use it. So, now as far as this Florida bill goes, 40 of Florida's 67 counties have already enrolled to take the plan course. And this has happened, of course, after the Parkland shooting. So, at least this is the kind of reaction I would expect. Let's prevent the next one. Let's give protection to our children. And those of you who say we don't need guns in school, I'd be willing to bet every congressman in Washington, every senator, every president who's ever been there has their kids going to a school surrounded by walls and men with guns or women with guns. There's no way their kids go to school without armed guards. I can bet you that. So what makes their kids any better than yours? Nothing. In fact, they're supposed to be public servants. We don't serve them. They're supposed to serve us. And we should have every right that every politician has. Yeah, that gets me a little miffed there because I don't believe politicians should be put on a pedestal like that. You know, the Second Amendment was created not because of deer hunters, not because I want to run around and shoot steel, for target practice. It was put in place to prevent a tyrannical government from taking over the United States. Because these people in the newly formed 13 colonies of the United States, these people had just fought a war against an oppressive government that tried to take their guns away. The British tried to ban owning weapons. And you know what? Americans, well, they weren't Americans yet, but soon-to-be Americans stood up and said, forget you. It's not going to happen. We're not going to pay your overinflated taxes. We're not going to do anything without being represented in our side of the government. So they fought a war. The war ended. Thank goodness the soon-to-be Americans had won, and they started a new country. And in my opinion, the Constitution is probably one of the most brilliantly written documents to ever exist. It is so specifically planned. It is so precise in the way it protects people's rights and tries to limit the government. Now, granted, we've gotten away from it a little bit because the Second Amendment clearly says, shall not be infringed. And yeah, there are infringements going on everywhere. Well, we're coming up.
You're a very intelligent gentleman and scholar and well respected by somebody surely here in the station.
My dog likes me.
Can you name one politician today that could even sit in the group that wrote the Constitution?
If I had to pick one, I'd probably say Ted Cruz could probably qualify. He seems to know the Constitution inside and out pretty well. And there's probably a couple others like him.
The only other one that I know of that bailed out said, I've had it with this crap, the swamp, was Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy was another one. Yes, he was very well versed in the Constitution.
But I mean, I'm serious. I'm not trying to just
Oh no, there are
joke,
some, and I think people are starting to realize these are the kind of people we need in order to maintain our republic.
I'm like you. I love the Constitution. I hate anybody that says it's a breathing article. I've never seen the Constitution take a breath, ever. And, and the people that try to blow on it and blow into it are crazy as hell. And the Constitution is the Constitution, and that's where it should be left. We need to take a break. I'm sorry, I get carried away, but you were on
a roll there.
Well, on one of my favorite topics, and that's the Constitution. And I marvel at the fact that they had to have had crystal balls of some sort. How could they see today 300 years ago or 250 years
They give us a great country with great rules, and after a couple hundred years, the kids are screwing it up.
Yep, you're right. And by the way, England has no law, or has a law against you can't own a gun in England.
Right, very specific circumstances, extremely difficult.
So anyway, with that, we're going to take a break on your show, not my show, and I'm sorry to butt in, but
always welcome, Dave.
You're talking a topic that I love. We'll be back right after this.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's DOCS, the number 4, patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
45 years of experience is behind the most trusted name in auto transportation, Passport Transport, the first and finest today. That's why Passport Transport is the preferred auto transport for major auto manufacturers, concours, museums, tours, and collectors, and should be your choice from across the state to across the country. When you have the need, go to PassportTransport.com and enjoy the peace of mind referenced experience will give you. Passport Transport.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol.
Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening. You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome back. I am Roger B. and this is Locked and Loaded, and you're listening to America's Web Radio. And one more time, if you don't get this broadcast live, you can go to americaswebradio.com. Most of the shows will be archived there within a short time, so you can listen to them again or see them again if you want to go there and actually view something. You can go to our YouTube channel, YouTube at America's Web Radio. Type that in and you should find most of the shows. And we do have a variety of things, not just about guns, although I only talk about what I know about. So I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to most of the other shows. But there's a huge variety of things to entertain almost anybody. Now let's get into one good story today. We had one. Florida is arming their teachers against potential shooters. What better way to protect our kids than the way all our politicians in Washington protect their kids and themselves with guns? But they don't want you to have the same rights. That strikes me as odd. But anyway, Minnesota now offers a gun safety to physical education classes. That's right. There's an environmental bill that included several pro-gun and pro-hunting facets that passed the Minnesota legislature and is heading to the governor up there. The state's Fish and Game Fund includes $500,000 grants to school districts to increase firearms safety, trap shooting, archery, hunting, angling activities, and physical education classes. This is spectacular. This is where we need to go. Get some of these kids away from the screen for a few minutes. Let them see some real life things. They want to get kids away from the TV, get them out in the woods, get them on the water, get them hooked on outdoor things. Maybe it's not too late. Because fishing on your couch with a video game is not quite the same as sitting in a boat and fishing. It's just not the same. I've done both, and let me tell you, sitting in a lake in the middle of a nice day, cracking open a cold Coca-Cola, is just, there's nothing better than that. Or soft drink, or cola, whatever it may be.
When you first went into that, talking about bows and arrows and all this stuff, and I was thinking about, arming the coaches or the teachers or whatever with a bow and arrow, and somebody comes through the school shooting. Hold it while I get my bow, and I don't know why I had this picture of.
It'd be better than nothing.
Are they going to throw the arrows at them or try to shoot them?
Well, I've seen some of the guys with bows.
Oh, I know.
Work, and now
a crossbow is as good as a rifle.
Oh, absolutely. Except it's silent. You don't know where it's coming from. Yeah. That's why Rambo used one.
Yeah. Good old Rambo.
But, this law in Minnesota, I think this is well on the right track to getting kids. And plus, it teaches them respect for firearms, teaches them they're dangerous, but teach them how to use them or how to be safe with them.
When I was growing up, and even in college, they had archery classes.
When I was in college, I took a rifle class as a PE. Yeah. And we had 22 target rifles, and once a week we went and shot for an hour and a half and competed, and by the end of the semester we had a winner. I was not it. I was second place. But a girl beat me, so I'm just letting you know. Hats off to her. She was better than me.
More control.
Probably so, yes, because guys tend to get a little overexcited, and we go off prematurely sometimes.
Not touching that one.
But anyway, so the grants are going to be issued through the No Child Left Inside grant program under Minnesota law. Now, they have 30 participants on 3 teams in the high school clay target shooting league, which began in 2007. Last year's count, they had 12,000 participants across 349 school-based clubs. So that goes to show you, if you give these kids an opportunity, you have people who are willing to work with them, willing to show them. They want to learn. They want to get outside. They want to do things. But too often nowadays, parents just throw a screen in front of them and do their own thing, and they can't watch your kids. And if you teach them about guns early, they'll have more respect. There won't be as many shootings because these kids will know what they're doing. They won't just watch a video game and decide it's okay to kill everybody because they'll reset in the next level.
I'm surprised that you didn't bring up, or there wasn't an article about the parental protest to all of this. That oh my God, you're gonna teach guns and.
There was a story about that. There was a general at a Boy Scout camp. I've told this before, but I'm going to do it one more time. There was a female reporter, and she was there watching the Boy Scouts learn to shoot rifles, and she was in horror saying, "You're equipping these children to be killers." And he goes, no, we're teaching them safety, we're teaching them respect for the weapons, but you're giving them the equipment to be murderous killers. So he turned to her and he goes, "Are you a prostitute?" And she goes, "Of course not." He goes, "Well, you've got all the equipment to be one." And hopefully that shut her up, because she realized equipment is not everything.
And she's probably ugly as a dog anyway.
Don't know, never saw her, not going to make a judgment on that, but she wasn't very bright, I can tell you that much.
She must have been a Democrat.
I don't know, but I'm hoping so, because we don't, I don't care what party you're on. Look around, see what you should be doing. If you don't like something, change who you vote for, or get somebody else to run for your party. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. Get somebody you can respect. Get somebody who you like. Get somebody who believes what you believe. Unless you believe America's the worst country on the planet, in which case you need to move somewhere else. Now, bad news for California yet again. Starting, this is back July 1st, lead ammunition will no longer be legal in California. Now, this applies to all hunting on public and private land, all wildlife, all firearms, rifles, shotguns, pistols, muzzle loaders, any gauge or caliber, for the taking of any legal species. So any hunting will not be allowed with any lead ammunition.
Well, lead's a killer. Just they took it out of paint.
Right. But most people aren't going around licking bullets or, lining their walls with bullets, although maybe some people do. That'd make some really cool wallpaper, wouldn't it? But they're saying that the ban will definitely impact the price of non-lead ammo and lowering the actual number of hunters in California, because if you have to pay a lot more to practice and to shoot, a lot of people will get out of the sport. Now, this is going to apply to centerfire and rimfire ammunition. Both of those will expect to be up over 250%. So if you're buying 22s, or if you're buying centerfire ammo, rifle ammo, expect a 250% increase in the cost of ammo. Shotgun prices are expected to go up 400%. So that bird hunt's going to become a lot more expensive, running steel or tungsten or whatever metals they decide to use. But lead will no longer be allowed in California. And now I think it was Obama who actually took all the lead mining facilities outside of America. He pushed them all out of this country. So now we import all our lead anyway. Okay, and now here's a good Trump story.
He put it in Michelle's bra.
Here's one I have to say good Trump on this one. He signed in H.R. 1222 to increase the number of shooting ranges available on public land. It was a bipartisan proposal passed in April, and the Senate likewise approved their version earlier. The bill drops the state-required matching funds from 25 cents on the dollar to 10 cents on the dollar. And funding can also accrue up to 5 years before they use it versus the current 2-year amount. Now, what this is going to do, it's going to use the 11% tax that's currently levied on all guns and ammo sold or imported into the United States. So keep in mind, every time you buy guns or ammo, you are paying an 11% excise tax. So this money goes to conservation. It goes to help building shooting ranges. It goes to help, procure the future of our shooting sports. So don't be afraid to spend money on extra ammo and guns. I'm always a proponent of that. You know how they say, how many guns is enough? And I've told somebody, just one more. That's all you need. Just one more and you should be good. But now the numbers they have out saying there's a minimum of 11.4 million hunters in this country, and sportsmen in general spend $25.5 billion into the economy. So now, more than ever, with gun sales going up this much, ammunition sales going up, we need places to go shoot. And there's no reason why public land should not be used by people who want to shoot stuff. As long as they're just shooting targets and game during season and things like that, that's fine. I have no issue with that at all. Now, this was coming out of Colorado, an interesting state with the red flag laws and everything we talked about, but this is in Commerce City, Colorado. A concealed carry real estate agent had survived an attack from a man she was showing an open house to. Now, this was an experienced agent. She had 14 years of experience. She arrived in the condominium to show the house at 11:30. Ernest Chrisman arrived at the front door and appeared interested in the property. He was asking detailed questions directly relating to the home. And she said he was asking all the right questions. He wanted to know how long it had been on the market. They talked about loans, what he might qualify for. So he's probably making her feel relaxed, thinking this is a serious buyer. This is somebody who has potential. After touring the downstairs area with Chrisman, the two went upstairs to complete the showing. Upon entering the master bedroom, Chrisman pulled out a large knife and cornered the real estate agent. The now knife-wielding attacker pulled out a 6-inch rope and ordered her into the closet, but she wasn't going to give up that easy. She drew her firearm, but in her hesitation, the attacker was able to spray her in the eyes with bear spray. Blinded and in extreme pain, she fired off a shot. He wanted me to take off my ring and go into the closet, and at that point, his intentions were deadly, in my opinion, so she made a choice at that point. You know, he's got her at knife point, he's asking for something, forcing her into a closet. Who knows what he was going to do at that point. Now, it's unknown whether the Chrisman was hit or not, but he ran as soon as she fired the shot. Kind of fired in his direction, because now she has been sprayed by bear spray, so she was probably not able to see very well, in extreme pain, and she fired a shot, and that was what it took to get him out of there. So I would imagine she's probably a long-time proponent of this and will probably, hopefully, educate other agents about potential in carrying a weapon.
That's great.
So I just want to know, we're going to be right back after this short break. You're listening to America's Web Radio. I am Roger B., and this show is Locked and Loaded.
This is Dr. Susan Blank, host of Detailing Addiction and medical director of the Atlanta Healing Center. Please join me on Tuesday afternoons at 4 p.m.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome back. I am Roger B., and you're listening to Locked and Loaded on America's Web Radio, the show where we talk about guns, the politics of guns, accessories for guns, and even stories where guns are used to save people's lives. The good guys, of course, as we did with our real estate agent in Colorado. I mean, and we were just discussing that off air for a minute, that, you know, women don't realize how vulnerable they can potentially be in this situation. And I'm thinking, I don't care who you are. Anybody gets hit in the face with pepper spray, you're going to have a bad day. Male, female, it doesn't matter. And she managed to fire off a shot in his direction, even without being able to necessarily see or have any kind of symptoms from being sprayed in the face with pepper spray. And she apparently probably saved her life, or at least saved a horrific assault on her part. So the pepper spray was the least of it. But I'm glad she's okay, and I hope they find the guy that did it, because as far as I know, he was still at large last I checked on the story. Now here's somebody who apparently I don't know who he is. He's some sort of possible celebrity. I don't know. I've never heard of him. He's probably down on the list, B, C, D-list celebrity. I don't know. His name is Larry Wilmore. He's years on Comedy Central, The Daily Show. He was a correspondent. And apparently, he's coming for our guns. Or as he calls them, our weapons of mass destruction. And I'm thinking, Larry, you're not coming for my guns, or whatever you want to call them. You sit there, you talk to your fellow anti-gun nuts about how you're coming for them. Maybe you'll get really mad. Maybe you'll tweet something about them. But apparently, so they started having, there was a Twitter discussion. I'll call it a discussion because I don't want to call it an argument or a fight. So somebody apparently responded to his weapons of mass destruction coming for our guns thing, and he says, hey, don't come for my gun. And he goes, I'm not coming for your gun, MF. I'm coming for your weapons of mass destruction. Well, it's my constitutional right. And the guy responds with, okay, I've got sarin gas in my garage. You can't have that. Exactly. I can't have that because it's a weapon of mass destruction. Just like you can't have a weapon of mass destruction. I don't know when he decided that a pistol or a handgun or a rifle or a shotgun is a weapon of mass destruction, but apparently that's his view of this. Now this is interesting because I thought this guy apparently thinks anybody who has a gun has a weapon of mass destruction. So I can imagine him calling the police on any one of his neighbors in California who he thought had a gun, telling them he's crazy, oh my God, he has a gun, you need to stop this. There's no way this should be allowed to happen. So this is the kind of people that you're going to be dealing with. In fact, he says, if you buy a semi-automatic rifle, you must be mentally ill. So he's already making his determination about your mental status just on the type of rifle you decide to buy. So it's just, yeah, I just don't know that these are the kind of people we're fighting against by trying to stop red flag laws. Now, I've only got a few minutes left. We're going to try and go over red flag laws real quickly just to show you what they do. Okay, when most people argue against the red flag laws, they argue solely on the premise of the Second Amendment. And sometimes you throw in the Fourth Amendment also. But here's a list of violations. They violate the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth, Seventh, and 14th Amendment. The Second Amendment, we all know, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Pretty obviously what we're talking about there, any law that restricts guns to a law-abiding citizen should not be allowed. Now, the Fourth Amendment is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue. But upon probable cause supported by an oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, it's pretty clear that in order for us to be secure in our property from unreasonable searches and seizures, the right cannot be violated without a warrant. And it has to be issued upon probable cause supported by an oath or affirmation. Now, the left is going to argue that because of the warrant, all the due process has been adhered to in a red flag law. So you're saying when an ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, bad date on an internet site, an in-law, a brother, brother-in-law, anybody can say, oh, he's crazy, I'm signing an oath, here we go, let's take his guns away. It's going to happen. In fact, there has already been a death attributed to red flag laws. I can't remember the state. I want to say it was in Baltimore. A gentleman heard beating on his door at 5 o'clock in the morning, so he got up, pistol in hand, of course. Who wouldn't? I probably would have something a little more substantial, but that's okay. That's me. I'd carry my baseball bat with me because I lost all my guns in that horrific boating accident. But so he goes to the door with his gun in hand. The police are there, and they start talking to him, and he's holding the gun. He sets the gun down. He's talking to the police. Then they explain to him why they're there. They're there to take his guns away. He decides, oh, hell no, you're not. Picks up his gun again. It starts altercation in the house. The gun goes off. The guy has his hand on the trigger. The gun goes off. The police then return fire and kill the man. Now, why were they there taking his guns away? What happened? Apparently, his sister decided he was too loud in his political arguments or too impassioned when he made these arguments, and decided that he probably doesn't need to have guns because he gets too excited when he argues about politics. So she called in the order. The police were there to serve it, and in the end, her brother died. Instead of talking to him in a reasonable manner, she decided to use the police as a weapon, and he ended up dead at the end of this. I don't know if she intended this or she had a riff with him beyond this, but this is something that just should not have ever happened. I mean, you can't just take somebody's property without a realistic approach. You need somebody who's a professional. But of course, if they're going to allow mental health professionals to testify or use mental health, assistance or mental health treatment as a potential for taking the guns away, again, like I said earlier, it's going to stop people from even seeking help. And it could be something very minor that you could just, maybe you had something happen traumatic in your life and you need a little help getting over it, someone to talk to. That could be enough to put you on this list to take the guns away. So many people are going to have to reconsider who they talk to about guns. Do they have any? Do they tell people about it? Do you talk to your neighbors about it? Do you talk to your coworkers about it? I mean, think about this. You're going to have to decide who you associate with from now on and who you talk to. The guy at work, he's a hardcore anti-gunner. Do you even talk to him at lunch? Or do you just avoid him completely? Do you avoid all your neighbors until you know they are like-minded? If they're not, do you even want to let them know where you stand on certain issues? Because the way people are today, just your political leanings can get you into a huge argument with people who think you're stupid or you're a racist or whatever it is they want to call you just because of your political leanings. And this is going to be a problem from here on out. I mean, we're actually pushing division among neighbors, among friends, among coworkers by giving them this potential to where in an argument or an altercation, they can point fingers and use the police as a weapon to disarm potential people who they find unpalatable in some way. You know, you find out somebody's, you know, your neighbor's kid is dating your daughter. You want him disarmed. Easy enough to do that. And it's for no reason other than you don't like him or you don't like what's happening. This is something that's gonna explode. 15 states out of 50 so far, and potential for a federal red flag law. Well, I appreciate everybody listening today. This is not going away. We're gonna cover this more. You are listening to America's Web Radio. I am Roger B., and this is Locked and Loaded. And remember, you can reach me at roger@americaswebradio.com. Thanks for listening.
This is Dr. Susan Blank, host of Detailing Addiction and medical director of the Atlanta Healing Center. Please join me on Tuesday afternoons at 4 p.m.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's DOCS, the number 4, patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
45 years of experience is behind the most trusted name in auto transportation. Passport Transport, the first and finest today. That's why Passport Transport is the preferred auto transport for major auto manufacturers, concours, museums, tours, and collectors, and should be your choice from across the state to across the country. When you have the need, go to PassportTransport.com and enjoy the peace of mind referenced experience will give you. Passport Transport.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com. The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docs4patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town.
Alpha's up there.
Oh, after this is the third year, isn't it?
This guy
start of the second year.
So slow. It's unreal. And I've been trying to get this seat back for the Model T. Anyway, so I talked to his wife the other day, and I'll tell her, I think it's kind of...
Oh, I think you should, yeah.
Anyway, we were talking, and I says, you know, and I said, and she was whining about their marriage and stuff, and I said, well, you know how it works. Like, if you put on a real slinky, sexy nightgown and said, tonight, let's just have wild, uncontrolled sex, he'd get around to it in 3 weeks.
That's giving time for the pill to kick in.
She just cracked up. She thought that was, God, that's so true.
Yeah.
But that's what you get today, you know?
Yeah. well, he said what 5 grandmothers pass away in the last couple of years.
But anyway, that's not. It's not just car stuff. It's
oh no, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's I've got a good friend up in Oregon that had been on a septic and started having problems, so the city forced him to go on sewer. And he had no problem with this, and he got a recommendation of who could do it and all this, and paid him a down payment to put the line in to meet up with the sewer. And it's been going on now for 2.5 months that they can't get and they said, oh, we'll do it in 3 days. It shouldn't take more than 3 days. So now he's on his 3rd month or whatever. And it's everything.
Yeah.
And I know y'all find this hard to believe, but I have a little bit of a temper. I don't know where that came from, but anyway. And all I ask when I walk in the door, you tell me when. If it's a week, that's fine. If it's 2 weeks, that's fine. 3 weeks, well, I wish you'd get a little faster than that. 4 weeks, but just tell me. And how much? Oh, it's going to cost X amount. Okay. And do what you tell me. What I get upset with is just like you said. Yeah. When somebody's told you it's going to be 2 weeks, if I tell you guys it's going to be, we're going to have so-and-so on in 2 weeks, by golly, we have so-and-so on in 2 weeks. And I don't intentionally ever lie to you or time or anything else. And that's the way I was taught growing up. And today, though, anything that has the word service attached to it at the end, and it's gotten to, for me personally, it's gotten to the point I'm scared to take anything in and leave it. It's like you want to get a cot and stay with it, to find out what the hell they're going to do.
Yeah, I'm not taking a cot up there where my car is.
No. It's just, I guess, just the nature of the times. I don't know. And there's nothing we're going to do about it.
Fake news, fake service.
Well.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff.
Anyway, are we going to take a station break? Because I want to talk about tours.
By golly, you're right.
Yes,
I think we should. I think we should do that. And if I can find, we had real problems yesterday, and I want to give a shout out to Brett Ullman, who is our incredible IT person. And Brett is you all would have loved yesterday and watching Brett, because he is not that familiar totally with one of our programs that we use, but we had a real problem, and we now can blame it on. We know who to blame it on, and that is good old Georgia Power. Even though I have UPSs and backups here, we've had some surges that still got us, and they corrupted one of our databases, and I couldn't load shows. And Brett was meticulous yesterday in, I mean, you've heard the expression, you can see the wheels turning.
Yeah.
I literally could see the wheels turning as the guy was figuring out, what had happened and tracing it back, and come to find out it was our main database that, because of all the surges, and we lost power a couple of times that went past my UPSs. And when you cut these things off unexpectedly, well...
Can't you run an extension cord next door?
I can't even get them to put gas in this damn building. And I'd put a Generex in there if this building had gas. But anyway, so I just want to... Brett, I know you're not listening, but when you play this back, I just want to shout out to you and say thank you for all you do for the station, and thank you for yesterday. So with that being said, we're going to take that break, Mr. Weber, and I'll salute you as we take it.
The best, and for 45 years, Passport Transport has been meeting those demands. From manufacturers to the one-car collectors and all other facets of the auto industry and antique auto hobby. The first and the finest with unequaled service and peace of mind. Passport Transport, your auto transportation company. Contact PassportTransport.com with your need today. Passport Transport.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
Hi, this is Steve Ronaldo, host of the Classic Car Show on America's Web Radio. Just talking to you about antique car insurance. I think that if you're looking for the best coverage for your classic car, consider J.C. Taylor Insurance. They've been my insurer for years in this hobby and have the top rating of all of the insurance companies in the hobby. When you get ready for insurance, call J.C. Taylor or visit jctaylor.com on the internet.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back on the Classic Car Show on America's Web Radio, and glad to have Americans listening in and our brothers in the UK listening in. I must say we have no one from Nigeria or what are some of the other? We don't have many Africans. We do have a lot of Australians that listen to the show, and wow. Germany has a number of listeners, as well as one other foreign country, and that's
France?
Japan.
Well, how about France?
France they hadn't figured out how to tune their radio yet.
Canada, I'll bet you there's some in Canada.
We'll have to go over there and show them how to.
Speaking of Canada.
Yes. Were we speaking of Canada?
Our colleague here, well, Steve mentioned it, has just returned from Canada.
Yeah, we've been on two tours. We did the New England Brass and Gas, and then we left our car and car trailer up there and came home for 3 weeks, and then went to Canada for the Vintage Tour in Kingston. So we've had two good tours. Then we'll take them in order. The Brass and Gas is always one of the better tours.
How many cars showed up?
There was about 80, and these are all pre-1915.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How long is it?
1 week.
No, I mean distance-wise.
Well, every day is different. Yeah, usually on brass tours, 75 miles, give or take.
A day?
A day, 1 day.
So you
go out and come back.
All on the road doing it, huh?
Yeah. You go out and come back. And this was in one of the prettiest areas that you can find, the White Mountains, Mount Washington area of New England.
Yeah.
They did a really nice job. We stayed at this old hotel that was built in 1858, the Great Something Inn up there. I can't remember, but it was huge, big one. Not the big Mount Washington that everybody sees with the red roof. the one that's on the one that's on all the postcards.
Right.
But this is sort of number 2.
Okay.
I know number 2.
And it was very, very. We had some problems with the hotel. A couple stories are kind of funny. We got there and it took 3.5 hours to get a room because they have to inspect it.
What?
Yeah, we sat in the lobby. We did. Brenda and I sat in the lobby.
Who had to? The state?
The hotel manager had to go and inspect the room, and it took him 3.5 hours to get up there. And
was he born in 1858?
Yeah, probably the same guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, hotel. This one is kind of the hotel was interesting because it's old and it's rickety, and the door floors are crooked and all that, and that's just part of the deal.
It's charm.
Yeah, it's part of the deal, and but the hotel was really peculiar. They had a coffee set up right outside of the dining room. And if you carried your coffee cup into the dining room, they added $6 to your bill.
Huh.
If you got your free coffee and went to the lobby, it was free. that one I don't figure out.
You ain't figured that out yet?
No. Everybody had a lot of complaints and issues with that, but the hotel was fun, and we went to some very interesting places, and it's really nice to see all of the big brass cars.
Well, there were some big ones?
Oh, yeah, there's always New England Brass and Gas always brings some of the very big cars. So we left, and we went to Mount Washington. And one thing I have never done, even though I've been in New England a lot, I've never taken the Cog Railroad up to the top railway to Mount Washington. And they have two ways to go. One is a diesel and one is steam. So we took the steam car up. And the guy that did our tour, the brakeman, fairly young guy, I'd guess maybe 30, and he starts as an apprentice. He told us how he got to be a brakeman on this. He said it took him 6 years before they would let him be by himself doing the brakes on this, because he really controls the whole thing, not the engineer. Because he's in the car and has all these deals. And you get to the top. It takes about an hour to get to the top of Mount Washington, and they have a sign up there: the coldest and windiest place in the continental United States. They had, and there's still an active weather station up there.
Yes.
237 mile-an-hour winds at the top of Mount Washington. And the temperature gauge only goes to 60, and it pegged it and still could have gone more.
60 below
60
zero.
below zero Fahrenheit, yeah.
You remember Yankee Magazine? You used to get
Yeah,
it?
we still get Yankee, I think.
Yeah, they had an article on the weather station up there a few years ago.
Yeah, and they had it's always been a tourist place since forever.
Right.
And they on the top of this, they have a few buildings, and they had a hotel up there, and it was really weird. The men stayed on one side, the women stayed on the other side, and there was a big table in the middle where they met to eat, but they were like little bunks. You sort of like a sleeper compartment on a train.
Mm-hmm. But you know why?
Climbed into.
Don't you?
How weird! Yeah.
You don't know why it was like that?
No.
Because they had common showers or common bathrooms that the men had their bathroom and the women had their bathroom.
It could be,
and that's why the women were on one side and the men were.
Yeah, but can you imagine? Can you imagine being up there in the winter on the?
No.
Yeah, and people still go there in the winter. They used to go year round, but it was very interesting. And coming down, of course, the brakeman is working these 2-3 levers, trying to keep the thing straight and turning this wheel. Very, very busy going down.
Now, is it steam or coal-fired?
It's wood.
Or wood, I mean.
Yeah, wood. Yeah, it was wood.
It's steam, obviously.
Yeah, it was wood.
Or
Yeah,
coal.
yeah. On the real old ones, it's wood. The diesel one takes about half the time.
Yeah.
But the wood one is very quaint, and and the sparks are flying around all over, and they have screens on the window so that sparks don't come in and burn you.
Okay, now Jim, you'll appreciate this question. I would think that model of train, like you see in all the good westerns, and it would have gone back that time or thereabouts. Now, who at this table, if it had one of those cords going up and down
You mean the emergency cord?
Yeah. Who do you think at this table would have tried that?
You.
No, they had no emergency. They only had that. The guy controlled everything in the front. Yeah, there's no emergency cord.
Oh.
No, it was just that guy, the brakeman. It's the most responsible job.
Yeah.
And he had one guy there that's been doing it for
They have a big
50
cow guard
years.
on it?
Huh?
They have a big cow guard on it?
No.
No, the train, the locomotive sits level and the base is tilted like this.
Yeah, it's like a narrow gauge railway.
I've been on that. But have you ever been on the one in Colorado?
No.
The narrow gauge?
No.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That goes up to the gold mines or silver or whatever it was.
Oh,
up there.
it's beautiful. Yeah.
But and it's kind of interesting, and the tour is always very nice. The New England it's done by one of the horses carriage groups up there, and they do it every other year. And AACA does the reliability tour the year that New England Brass and Gas doesn't do theirs.
Just let me interrupt you, if I may. Are horseless carriage and AACA two separate entities still, or have?
Yes. Yeah, they're two clubs. Yeah, but on the reliability tour, they both are part of the reliability tour together.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both together.
Okay, gentlemen.
Oh, okay.
Time to take a break. We'll be back with Steve and his story right after this.
Hi, this is Steve Ronaldo, host of the Classic Car Show on America's Web Radio. Just talking to you about antique car insurance. I think that if you're looking for the best coverage for your classic car, consider J.C. Taylor Insurance. They've been my insurer for years in this hobby and have the top rating of all of the insurance companies in the hobby. When you get ready for insurance, call J.C. Taylor or visit jctaylor.com on the internet.
Your auto love and investment demands the best, and for 45 years, Passport Transport has been meeting those demands. From manufacturers to the one-car collectors and all other facets of the auto industry and antique auto hobby. The first and the finest with unequaled service and peace of mind. Passport Transport, your auto transportation company. Contact PassportTransport.com with your need today. Passport Transport.
My name is Kyle Hayes, a motorsports student at Alfred State College. Every year, Alfred State students compete in the Great Race, which is a cross-country time endurance rally for vintage vehicles. As you can imagine, it's pretty costly. I'm asking for your help. Your donation can make it possible for these students to live their passion and promote the vintage automobile industry. Please visit our site at give.alfredstate.edu and search Great Race to learn more and help us reach our goal. Thank you.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back on the Classic Car Show on America's Web Radio with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber. And I want to give a shout out to our friendly folks at Passport Transport. If you're listening to the show, go by and see Ed Watts and tell him that we gave him a shout out. He's in Pebble Beach right now, packing up those trailers to bring those cars all across the U.S. and parts unknown.
Well, he's probably resting this morning because the show's tomorrow.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
So
Sunday. The big one is
the
Sunday.
big was Sunday, and then the vintage car races are over Sunday. But any of those great, big, gorgeous green trucks out there.
You know, and I emailed Ed the other day that the only time I've ever watched the race at Pebble Beach or anything like that was courtesy of your tax dollar. I was sitting up on a mountain with my binoculars, courtesy of your tax dollar, looking down on Pebble Beach and that part of the peninsula from Fort Ord, California. That's no longer, well, it's still there, but no longer a fort.
It's decommissioned. It's like Fort McPherson here.
Yeah, but it was a beautiful, beautiful view. And as your station, as you well know, or all of us well know, all you can think about was, God, it would be so much fun to be out of uniform and down there with the rest of the real people.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a beautiful view, and we want to wish Ed Watts and Passport Transport well, and we'll talk to Ed this coming week, I'm sure.
Let's hope. Okay, well, let's go back to the New England.
The Brass and Gas.
Gas.
We went to a lot of neat places, but the town that we were in was the most interesting. It's called Whitefield, and Whitefield is a crossroads. The closest drugstore is 12 miles away, and grocery stores 12 miles away.
Wow.
They had a Family Dollar, and we went in to get something, and the lady took me back and says, "Oh, I'm out of it. You'll have to go over to whatever the next town was," and she said it's 12 miles away. That's the next grocery store, and really different.
Yeah.
And of course up there, because you're in the mountains, it's very, very hilly, and it's a challenge.
How did the car perform, or how?
Well, it didn't do well. I had some issues. It's the first tour that we've taken it on in a little while, but I had some issues, And come to find out that, and I'm fixing them now, it was all about ignition timing. The car was running hot, didn't have any power, and it was way over advanced. So I made a special tool when I got home to actually, because you can't see in a Model T, you can't reach down in there, I can anyway, and touch like a Model A. You can touch the top of the piston, and you're supposed to set number 1 TDC at about 1/8 of an inch below, and that's where you want number 1 to fire, simply on the T, because you have to crank it. And that makes it easy to crank. So anyway, and a few other things. It did not do well, so we had a couple days that, you know, didn't do. So Brenda rode with the Wallaces one day, and then one day it just poured, so we just took the regular car. Those old cars are not safe in the rain.
No,
they just aren't.
No. What was the Wallace's car? Was
it's a 12, big 12 Packard.
Packard.
Big. And I mean big, very, very nice car. And they've been friends for years. And I'll tell a story on myself, how stupid.
What did you do?
What did I do? Bill Ottman has a big Rambler, and I mean it's a big car. So I was coming up to the front of the place. The hotel is on a little, very slight incline, and he saw me coming up, and there was a spot in front of his big Rambler, and he's pulling. So I pulled in, forgot to set the handbrake. Got out of the car.
No.
It rolled back, and the rear fender whacked into his headlight and broke the lens and dented the headlight, and I just paid the bill.
I don't want to know.
No, you know, but everybody has done stupid. So everybody was trying to make me feel good. One guy said he didn't realize when he was showing some people how to crank a car that he had left it in gear. And it was one of the ones with the 2 levers, and it started, and it ran over him and crashed into a pole. I mean, everybody has these stupid stories. So,
somebody put one in a lake one time at a
that was Wayne Carini's friend. Ralph
Morano.
He had that, and it was first time out for that car, fresh restoration, and they were asking him to start it and do all of this other stuff. So anyway, he forgot. And it was at Hilton Head, and he just flat forgot to put it into gear, set the parking brake, and he got out, and the car rolled right into the lake.
My dad used to have the story on his folks. I guess it was Model T. I don't know. I don't know how many back then were crank version, but you know, it was his job. He was the oldest son, and it was his job to get the car started, and broke his wrist.
Sure.
The crank came around, and
it was called a forward fracture. Yeah, you pull up. You never push down. You pull up on the crank so that if it does kick back and you've forgotten to retard the ignition timing, it will pull you down. It won't push like this, because if it pushes like this, it's going to break something.
Well, he told the story many times.
It's very common on brass car stuff. So anyway, we got done. We left the car. We finished that tour and took it back to our friends, the Armstrongs, in Meredith, New Hampshire, and left the car there. Came home, and if you've never been, Meredith is an absolutely beautiful place on Lake Winnipesaukee. They've had their cottage, if you will, in their house for years. Just to give you an idea, one of the more famous, car people, Bob Baer, who built Loudon Racetrack, New England Dragway, all of this stuff. He and his son had houses on the lake, and they were for sale for $49 million, and you had to buy 2 of them. There was not just one. You don't buy one, you buy 2. Adam Sandler and his manager bought them for $47 million. So when you ride around, and Jack has a really nice old Chris Craft
cruiser?
Not a cruiser, but a note with the 2 little openings.
Open cockpit.
I don't know what it's called, but where you go riding around and you look at the shoreline, you see some. They're all Boston people, lots of money.
Always has been.
Yeah, that's an old vacation place. Well, anyway, so we came back up and picked it up, and I learned something. I was talking to a Dodge guy, and I didn't even know this existed in my car. that there's tire pressure monitor, and there's a thing on the dash. If you push it and it moves this way, it'll tell you voltage, and I didn't know this, voltage, it'll tell you coolant temperature, it'll tell you oil temperature, it'll tell you transmission oil temperature, all of this stuff. I never realized this was there, so I was farting around with this stuff, and this is good information. And I saw that the oil temperature was towing was 230 some degrees, and back in the days when I was working before synthetics, we used to tell people that you want your engine oil temperature to be 180 to 200, and that made me kind of nervous. So anyway, when I got home this last time, I called my friend at Pennzoil, one of the engineers, and we were talking about that stuff. He said the new synthetics that you buy are good for use up to 300 degrees oil temperature. And this is something for everybody to consider. He recommends, if you're he said you always stay with what the engine manufacturer, the viscosity that they tell you. So on the Dodge, it's 5W20. They don't make it yet, but there's a Euro spec oil that's fairly new that actually runs cooler than regular synthetic, and it will say Euro oil on there. It's something that BMW, Ferrari, all of the high-performance European cars are mandating this Euro spec oil, and the lightest viscosity that I can find is 5W30, and he works for Pennzoil, and they're probably the biggest. Pennzoil Shell is probably the biggest in the world making engine oil, and he said, I can't recommend that you use that because that's what the manufacturer says, but you probably wouldn't have a problem. Yeah. So what I think I'm going to do, my next oil change, which is coming up, I'm going to buy some 5W30 Euro spec and see if that changes the oil temperature.
Yeah. Interesting, and we'll go back to Canada in a minute, but I happened to be in a Nissan dealership this week, and they specify 0W20, and it's on most of the engines built after 2015, and not to use anything else, and it has to be synthetic.
Yeah, and they have a new one now, 0W16.
Gee. Yes, Toyota recommends that.
0W16. And the only reason for doing this is it gets better gas mileage because the lighter the oil, the less effort it takes to move the oil through the engine.
Do you remember the old A1 oil that came in a can that you used to? Yeah. That's about the thickness of.
Well, you got in different grades, but now this new stuff, and they're saying, and my buddy Pennzoil said that this Euro spec is the hot setup.
Is that the one that the company's Motul, M-O-T-U-L?
Motul is one, but all of the big ones, Quaker State.
Oh, they're doing it?
Yeah, they all have, but it says Euro spec on the containers.
Can you buy it at Walmart?
Yes, you can.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can buy.
What about at your local express oil change?
No, they wouldn't stock that. That's something you have to bring. I found a lot of those kind of places, if you bring an oil filter and the oil, they'll charge you $10 to change the oil, and then you don't have to screw with it. But you bring your own.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You bring your own stuff.
I want to change the subject for a minute because you said a word a minute ago that just sort of dinged a thought. With our resident librarian here, do you have a book, Jim, on... You're leaving?
No, I was looking to see who you were talking to.
I'm talking about you. You have more books on cars than, than the museum has.
Go ahead.
Anyway, is there in your collection of books any of them, or do you know a source of how cars got their names? I was just thinking this when you said Rambler. The first thing that popped in my head was Nash.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious. Was Nash a person, and it was Nash Rambler, or
no? They weren't connected.
No.
Huh?
They aren't connected. Rambler was just an old car company.
Yeah.
Way back in the in the zeros.
So where did Nash come from?
Nash.
Yeah. gentleman named Nash.
Guy named Nash.
You got a book? Yeah, you have the book. It's
in there. Okay.
Yeah. I gave that big.
Yeah.
And that gives. I mean, you have to go into each area, and it'll tell you. Like Oldsmobile was Ransom E. Olds, and then he made Rio from his initial.
Walter Chrysler, Henry Ford.
William Crapo Durant was Durant. I don't remember Nash's name, but Kelvinator and Rambler were brands of Nash, if I remember right.
Yeah, Kelvinator appliances. Yeah. There's a place in Denver called the Rambler Ranch, and this guy collects anything associated with that name, and he has a whole building filled up with appliances that were Kelvinators and stuff.
And they were the original refrigerator.
I don't know about original, but
and it's like Rolls Royce. It was Henry Royce.
The two names.
Yeah,
Henry
and W.O. Bentley was Bentley, and Mercedes, that was the daughter's name.
Yeah, but it came from what, Daimler?
Yeah, and then
Daimler
Porsche was Porsche, and MG was Morris Garages.
But when you said Rambler, it just was.
Yeah, when you say Rambler, a lot of people think Nash.
Yeah, because my grandfather had a Nash Rambler, and you were talking about it.
They were banned in the drive-ins.
It was
because the seat laid down.
It was boat size, or yacht size.
They were banned in the drive-in.
It's just like I wouldn't let my daughter go out with a kid that showed up with a van either.
Those were the good old days.
But I'm interested to see if next time our friend from Performance is on, I'm going to ask him what he knows about this.
Well, Eurospec.
Yeah, Eurospec oil.
Mr. Dunst.
Yeah.
James Dunst. Okay, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
45 years of experience is behind the most trusted name in auto transportation. Passport Transport, the first and finest today. That's why Passport Transport is the preferred auto transport for major auto manufacturers, concours, museums, tours, and collectors, and should be your choice from across the state to across the country. When you have the need, go to PassportTransport.com and enjoy the peace of mind referenced experience will give you. Passport Transport.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back on America's Web Radio and the Classic Car Show. And again, another shout out to our friends across the pond that are listening to America's Web Radio. And want to remind everybody that you can see this and listen to it. It'll be posted, the archive will be posted on Monday, and you can check out the hairdos of Mr. Rinaldo and Mr. Weber on YouTube, and we ask that you subscribe to YouTube, the America's Web Radio channel, as well as follow us on Facebook. It'll be posted on Facebook, actually, I think today. I think it's automatic with them. It goes right to it on our channel. But anyway...
Never looked at it.
Well, you were here live and direct, so you don't have to. You know what happened.
Facebook. I've never looked at anything on Facebook. I've never turned it on.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Anyway, going on with You're welcome to tune us in, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and listen to us on our website. And I think it's not posted in the video version, only the audio version, but will be posted on our website on Monday as well. So we thank everybody that has subscribed to our YouTube channel. It has been incredible with the folks that have started listening to us, and they come back and listen day in and day out, all times of the weeks and months, and down the road 3 months from now, 2 months from now, or a year from now. But anyway, we want to thank everybody that tunes in on this side of the pond as well as on the other side of the pond. And we want to tell our English friends to go talk to the French. They need to be listening more. But you got to wake them up, you know. They can't hardly find they can't find their way out of a war. So anyway, we want to thank everybody.
Well, let's go back and talk about your Canadian tour.
Yeah, then we went back and we picked up the car and went across Canada. We went up through and we crossed into Quebec.
Yes.
Quebec, as they say.
Yes.
And that's an experience. If you've never done that, everything is in French. And I remember even as a kid growing up in the Buffalo area that there have been fights between Canada and Quebec about them wanting to leave and form their own country.
Yeah.
They even had a terrorist organization.
FLQ.
Yeah, anyways, that is something Q.
Federation for the Liberation of Quebec.
Yeah, and bombings and shootings but anyway, that's all. I hope that's over. But anyway, it's all in French. And one of the things I do like though is at the exits they have Canada Go. And it's on, and they have these, like when you go up north, they have service areas, and these are their service areas all through Canada, and it makes it very easy to not worry about. They have motels, they have restaurants, and they're all grouped together.
And they're clean.
Yes, they are very clean. I didn't see hardly any trash at all on the roads. They don't do that. Canadian people don't litter. True. But the weird thing is, their money, they did away with the penny. No pennies. Everything is rounded up to 0 and 5. And they did away with their dollar bills and another bill, and they have loonies and toonies.
Yeah.
Loonies are, a dollar is a loonie, and a $2 coin is a toonie. Loonies and toonies. It takes some little getting used to the loonies and toonies. But everything works up there, and everybody's very nice. And I finally got an ATM card. And I used it up there, actually. That's the first time I've ever used an ATM card, so now it's back in the drawer where it belongs.
Sounds like they're governed by Disney.
Well, I don't think the people were thrilled about this idea, so they call them loonies and toonies. I think that's the people. But anyway, so we went to Kingston, and this was the AACA Vintage Tour, and there were some absolutely cool cars on there. There was a guy that we've met on several tours. His first name is Mike, and his last name is H.O. something, I can't remember. But he has a 1907 Durac.
Yeah.
He's a German guy, and he's lived in Canada ever since he was a kid, but he goes back, he saw his family, and he bought this thing in Europe and brought it, because it was never sold in the U.S. Right. And it is a huge, huge vehicle. And there was a V16 Cadillac Victoria Coupe.
Oh.
31.
Yeah.
Absolutely cool as could be. There was a 20-something Pierce Arrow. And sedan, which is pretty unusual. And there was a few. Most of them were Model A's. Few Model T's, but mostly Model A's, of course. And we toured around Canada, went to all of these different places. And Kingston is odd because it's right on Lake Ontario, and it's beautiful blue sky, and then all of a sudden, off the lake comes this tremendous rainstorm for about a half hour, 45 minutes. The wind is blowing sideways. I mean, we got soaked a couple times in the car. And and then it clears up in blue skies. I mean, it just was bam, all of a sudden. How weird. But and the nice place, the hotel we stayed at, huge hotel, had trailer parking there, so everything was right there. It was done very nice, and they did a really good job. We had a lot of fun.
Trailer parking, is that drive-through?
Yeah, trailer parking at the hotel. And the interesting thing was they asked if I would put my car in the opening banquet in the room.
Neat.
Yeah, so my car was sitting at the opening banquet in the room, the white T. Everybody liked that. It's a pretty little car.
It is.
It's a
it
cute
is.
little car.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we left, headed home, and we crossed and got I-81 going towards Watertown. And the American Crossing Guard, the Canadian people were very, very nice. American Crossing Guard, we had the World Wrestling Federation female champion, undefeated.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man, was this woman nasty. I mean, just roll down your windows. Take your glasses off. Look at me. What you got in the car? What's in the trailer? She grabbed my car keys and just grabbed them out of my hand and opened the trailer. So where's the registration? I said, well, the trailer and the Model T, they stay with the trailer and the car. You should have it with you. You're supposed to have it with you. You're supposed to know that. How would I know that? I haven't been when I was a kid and crossed the border, they never even bothered to check. Oh, she was just as mean, and you couldn't say anything because she would have crushed you in a second. You would think that they would want to be at least a little, you're welcoming people to your country.
Yeah, but you are a citizen, so you don't count.
Yeah, but just unbelievably nasty.
Well, I told you that we went up there and they wanted to know what we'd sold up there and what we bought up there, and they wanted to drill holes in the tools on the way up and on and on.
The Canadians?
Yeah.
They were just really nice.
I know. But coming back, I bought that one Zagato up there and brought it in. It wasn't an 81. I don't remember where it was. It's been so long ago. They processed the paperwork, took my check for whatever duties I had to pay on the car, and off we went. So who knows?
Yeah, you never.
I guess it's the person you find, and
yeah. Well, her team must have lost the roller derby the night before. but we had an uneventful ride home.
Good.
I want something that's new, and again, I travel a lot and go into these tours. We ran into a place. We stayed in Staunton, Virginia, and there's a new chain out called True. I've never seen it. Hilton, TRU, and really nice, and really it's more of a European style motel.
Oh, okay.
No fancy stuff, no nothing, but done really nice, very tastefully, very clean, and not over. It was $90-some a night.
Wow.
So we stayed there, and so that's something to keep in the back of your
breakfast
mind.
in the morning.
Yes, absolutely, and a nice breakfast at that.
Yeah. Speaking of that, and I know your eating is very regular. You prefer McDonald's because it's easy to get in and out of there. But what'd you do in Quebec? What'd you do in Quebec?
We didn't eat in Quebec. We just drove through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna. I didn't want any frogs and snails for lunch.
Why? So there's no McDonald's in Quebec?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah, there's McDonald's everywhere. But the big chain in Canada is called Tim Hortons.
Yeah. Well, they have them in Buffalo now.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I asked the guy, who in the hell is Tim Horton? He must be a zillionaire. He said, no, he was a hockey player.
Yeah.
And they started with one or two, and now they're all over the place.
Yeah.
Much more than McDonald's.
Yeah.
Huge Tim Hortons.
Yeah. You buy them or you find in Buffalo. Rochester, Syracuse might have one or two also.
So it's growing, huh?
Well, it has been for years. I mean, I ate in them in the 60s. So they've been around that long.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And Canadian Tire's got all the service.
Yeah. I went to Canadian Tire. It's not a tire store. It's a Walmart without a pharmacy and a grocery store.
Yeah.
Anything you want in there, and you had to have lots of loonies and toonies. But it was a very good tour. We visited some pretty neat places. One day was long, so we didn't drive 168 miles. We didn't take the T.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, we rode with somebody.
Okay.
And we took the ferry, the Thousand Island Boat Ferry.
Isn't that neat?
What an interesting place. That's the, for anybody who's listening, and, I know a lot of you like car shows and stuff, but the tours are just so much more fun. You get to meet people, see stuff, and enjoy your car, not just sit there and look at it.
Well, and plus you go to museums and you go to other venues that are not really automotive related. Did you stop at any school? Well, no, school wasn't in session on these two tours, but usually you'll stop.
We'll stop at a school and they'll come out and they'll have junior. Some of them that are like vocational schools, they'll have the students make either a coffee stop or have lunch in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
And leave the cars, and it's a great part of the hobby. The tours to me are much more fun than the car shows.
And the beautiful thing is that Brenda does those books afterwards.
Yeah, she always does a book.
Yeah, and it's tour related, not just automotive.
Yeah,
and that's
and you
what
do,
you see and what you do,
and you get when you do a brass car tour, and I'm interested to do a 1 and 2 cylinder tour to see how that stuff is.
Well, hopefully you get the Maxwell back within a year.
Yeah, it'll be done this winter, and I'll have to go down and get it.
Yeah,
have to go down and get it. So anyway,
okay, folks.
Well, we all through. Well, that went fast.
It's time to put the old plug in the jug and get out of here. So thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jim. That was very interesting, talking about Nashes. We'll be back next week on America's Web Radio and the Classic Car Show.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
America's Web Radio on America's Broadcast Network. We're glad to be here today. You're listening to David's Pick, and I get to do that because I happen to own this joint. So anyway, I pick what goes on in this hour. Sometimes it's going to be a pre-recorded show or a show from last week that I happen to like, that was exceptionally good, and or had an exceptionally good topic and decided to replay it. So who knows what David's pick's going to be, but it's going to be my pick and my decision to run it. So anyway, with that being said, people always ask me, well, how many shows do you do? Well, quite frankly, I don't particularly want to do any shows, but sometimes push comes to panic, and one decides one needs to do a show. And part of this is driven by the fact that, quite frankly, I don't know about you folks, but I'm just sort of sick and tired of it. Sick and tired of the blame game, the finger-pointing game, the argument game. I've gotten to the point, as far as some of the news channels go, I won't listen anymore when they have 3 or 4 or 5 people and they all start talking over themselves. You can't hear a word they're really saying. It just, they're just sort of, and then you got one of them that decides they're going to yell, or they're going to, they're going to do this or do that. And frankly, there's a lady named Mary Ann Marsh. She was just on a few minutes ago, and I've seen her. I don't like her. She's a liberal with the Dewey Square group, whatever the hell that is. It's a Democrat public relations group. Well, if she's an example of the public relations, this Mary Ann Marsh can take it and take a flying leap. She is really not my kind of person. She tries to yell over. She comes up with, I don't want to say it's the fake news, but she comes up with things that,
I just really can't buy into it. I can't buy into Marianne Marsh. So Marianne Marsh, you get the old Fickle of Fate, the Fickle Finger of Fate Award that they used to give out many, many years ago. By the way, if you all want to have a comment about the show, the good comments are welcome. The bad comments, just keep them to yourself. But you can email me, David, at americaswebradio.com, and we'll be glad to address whatever questions you have. And I guess I can't really start today without discussing a little bit, or I'll give you my views. They're only my views about what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. I, like the president, think it was a tragedy. It's basically an uncalled for thing. But I think there's a bunch of underlying reasons, and they're on both sides of the fence, as a matter of fact. And it seems like it always. We talked about this on Medicine on Call the other day with Dr. Elena George. We've talked about this on the Immigration Hour with Charles Cook. In most of our shows, it always comes back to one thing, and that's education. Our country seems to be doing the poorest job of educating our kids and our young people, better than, granted, better than many, many third world countries, but still not good enough. I look at both sides of the fence on the thing in Charlottesville, and quite frankly, my wife and I got into an argument about it. I don't know if I'm right. Heavens knows I'm wrong most of the time. So, my opinion is my opinion, but right or wrong, I don't know. You can decide. Maybe it'll give you a little time to think about what I'm saying. But, we've got to accept, and one of the terms that I hate before I get into it is rewrite history. Well, as old as I am, history is history. It always has been, and it always should be. You don't rewrite it. You don't make Germany's Hitler a saint. He was the devil himself. Adolf Hitler was terrible. He was, you can't rewrite him and paint him anything but bad, black, terrible. The Nazi emblem. And these idiots today that say they're neo-Nazi and they wear the swastika and they think they're white supremacy, it's all bull. All you have to do is look at history and see which side wins. It's not the swastika. By the same token, what caused this little deal in Charlottesville? A statue. Well, a statue is a statue. That's it. History. We can't change history. In fact, I would say one of our biggest problems in the United States is not learning from history. And this goes, in my opinion, across the board, whether it's American history or world history. Oh my goodness, those were classes I took in school, I think. I even took them in college. Interesting. Well, facts are facts. History is history. You can't change, quote, unquote, history. We had a lovely lady on, Lucretia is her name, I can't recall her last name, on the insurance deal last week, last Thursday. And I applauded her. Off air, I should have done it on air, I didn't have the opportunity. But she said, I'm a black American. And I couldn't agree with her more. I applauded her, I complimented her, and that's what she is. Not an Afro. She didn't come out and say, I'm an Afro-American. She said, I'm a black American. And that's what she is. You know, why can't we all be Americans? Why do we have to put a tag on it? Why can't we all accept history? You know, the local history. Oh my God, I find a statue of Robert E. Lee offensive. Why? It's history. It happened. I'm not going to judge right or wrong about the Civil War. We know how it turned out because we have a history book. Things that happened 300 years ago, yes, they were terrible. Slavery was terrible. I'll be the first to say it. But at the same token, history shows that it wasn't Americans going to Africa and enslaving blacks and bringing them back. It was their own people. It was a tribal thing in Africa. One tribe won and sent the losers on the ships to America because we'd pay for them, because we needed help. We needed help in our farms. We needed help in our industry. And it was terrible. Slavery is terrible. But if you look at it in some ways, the slaves had a better life on most of the plantations than they did in their own villages in Africa. That's not making it right. Don't misunderstand. Don't go off on it that I'm no. Just stating a fact. But it's history. We learn from history that America, the United States of America, can't prosper, can't live under slavery, under people owning other people. That's history. A statue, instead of saying, oh, it brings back, it doesn't bring back anybody's memories unless they're 300 years old or something, and I hadn't met that person yet. I hadn't even seen them on TV yet. It's just history, and it's a good reminder. And Robert E. Lee, yes, he owned slaves. But, you know, what would you do in his place? What did a lot of people do in his place? Some thought it was right. Some thought it was wrong. Some went to war, the Civil War, and hated it, even though they were, on one side or the other. But it proved, and you look back in history, it proved that the United States can't live under a slavery situation. People can't own other people in the United States. End of story, end of war, it's history, so look at it like history. Everybody now has an equal opportunity. If they don't want to take it, that's of their own choosing. History and facts are two things that we have to get a grasp on it and be able to handle the truth. Facts are the truth. Proven facts are the truth. History is the truth. You can't rewrite history. History is history. History is what happened 5 minutes ago. History is what happened 200 years ago. So we all have to be able to accept it. And how do we learn to accept it? And this is where I really have a problem in the field of education. I think it's a shame that a teacher doesn't get to teach what they should be teaching. If they have a disruptive student, they can't.
Thank you for listening, and today we're very honored to have a guest, Kathy Floyd, who is the Executive Director of, we call it COAGE, Kathy, but what is the official name here?
So the entity is the Georgia Council on Aging, and we administer a coalition of aging advocates called COAGE.
And Kathy, you want to just give us your background? And so you've been a long time advocate of supporting the rights and helping seniors.
Yes, Joe, I have. I've been active advocating for seniors in various positions for just about 25 years now. in Georgia. I have a background in politics. I want to share with you that I handed out campaign buttons on the school bus in the first grade in 1964. So I've been interested in politics for quite a while.
But didn't you have a spell with the AARP?
Sure. I have an MBA in finance. I spent my first career in financial advising, and then I had a transition and worked for AARP for 19 years, and now I've been with the council for 5.5 years.
True advocate,
yes.
which we appreciate. I'm just going to go over here and just have you just go over your mission.
Certainly.
For this. Now, this is kind of a unique entity within kind of quasi-state government, right?
It is. We were created by the legislature in 1977, and our purpose is to advise the governor, the General Assembly, and state agencies on the wide range of issues that impact the 60-plus population in Georgia. And I report to a council, which is sort of like my board of directors, and there are 20 folks appointed by the governor, lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, and the commissioner of Department of Human Services. And those folks really set the mission and the tone, and they're volunteers, and they serve from all over Georgia in a volunteer capacity, and they are all passionate about improving the quality of life of Georgians. So we are dotted line attached to the Department of Human Services, but those volunteers that are appointed really set the tone and the mission. And we have, I have 2 staff that work with me, so there are only 3 of us, but we really take our mission very seriously and work hard to improve. And elder abuse is a key part of what we work on.
Right, and I see some of your objectives there. We interact from the North Georgia Elder Abuse Task Force as we bring and highlight issues that need legislative support.
Right.
And that laws change, laws tweaked, laws improved, and you all are. I know you're on the state committee with us, and the idea is to bring this to the attention of the legislators and let them, since they make the laws.
Correct.
And hopefully the governor will sign these bills. But but it is basically geared to help protect our senior citizens. Now, you go a little farther than that. You look at the whole elderly issue.
Correct. So we work on issues like helping people age in place. So the home and community-based services, all of the ways that people can stay independent in their homes as long as possible. And this is not only the right thing to do, it's not only what people want, it also saves taxpayer dollars because nursing homes are expensive. And over 80% of the beds in nursing homes are paid for with taxpayer dollars.
Wow.
So anytime you can keep a person at home, we've found that it's 1/10 of the cost of what it takes to take care of them in a nursing home. Now, sometimes people need to go to a nursing home, but they don't need to unless they need that level of service.
Well, there was a program, I think we had Lynn Reeves on from the Regional Commission up in Rome, Georgia, but there's a program, I think it's funded by federal or state dollars, to try to get people to help them get out of nursing. Are you familiar with that program?
Right. So we do as much as we can to keep them out on the front end, but people do go in, they don't know what all their options are, and so there are 2 programs actually in Georgia.
Okay.
Money Follows the Person is a federal program, so it's a federal state match, and it moves people out of nursing homes. The Council on Aging was instrumental in getting the state program started, which also moves people out of the nursing home. But the state program was started because there are some restrictions with the federal program, like you can't move them into anything but a 4-bed or less home. And Georgia has a lot of 6-bed homes. And so we had people that could come out, people that could go to a 6-bed home, but they didn't have that transitional funding. So now there's another program, the Nursing Home Transitions Program, which will help them get out and get back home, and it doesn't have as many of the restrictions that the federal program. So it fills the gap with the federal program.
Well, I think it's a great program. I think you see maybe less issues on the whole. When you're at home, people are happier, and then if you get sufficient and safe home health care, that helps them. And the senior seems to like that. I thought it was interesting. You said you look at it from age 60, where a lot of senior laws are written at age 65.
Or 62.
Or 62, and I think some federal laws or rules are 55.
Right. It's the Older Americans Act that starts at 60, and so that's generally what we look at. Now, we have that nursing home transitions program actually goes down to 55 because, and what we did is we looked at it in a practical fashion. The people that are not getting help, where are their ages? And we saw that we had some 58, 59, 56 years old. So the legislature said, okay, let's put it back to 55 and above. So we really look at it in a practical viewpoint as far as the people that are impacted.
Well, let me ask you, and when you deal with government, hadn't been in government for 30 years myself, there are a lot of things called by different names, but do you have any, since this goes all over the United States and even all over the world, this show, what should people look for in their states or the type of organizations that would be similar to yours, where you have the citizens helping to look at drafting legislation or bringing the problems? Are you aware of other similar situations?
We are somewhat unique. There are organizations that are part of state government in other states, but generally they are a part of the Division of Aging and the services side, and we are somewhat unique in our independence, which we really appreciate. We have talked to some other states. In fact, I've been doing some phone calls with a former AARP advocate in North Carolina that's looking to build up a 501c3 to do some of the things that we're doing.
Wow.
So, and I know that there are some in other states. I'm just not aware of.
I think Tennessee has a similar through the legislature, and I was just looking at a list that we had here, and I think I gave you a copy. It goes state by state of what's available, and as Kathy just was saying, most of them are through the
Division of Aging.
You're right, but as you go through, I'm just looking through here. Idaho, for example, has a commission on aging.
Right. And you may have a silver-haired legislature. Many states have a silver-haired legislature, and Georgia used to have one.
I'm not sure what that is. What does that mean?
Well, it is, there's a little bit of state funds, and then you have volunteers that serve. There's sort of like a shadow legislature.
Really?
And so that's an interesting idea. Georgia had one, but it was defunded a number of years ago. But that is a great model where a lot of retired folks will serve as somewhat shadow senators, shadow representatives, and then they develop their own
shadowing.
programs.
You mean trying to bring the interest of the elderly to the legislature.
So they serve as just like our champion representative Sharon Cooper would serve for Marietta. They would have a representative for her district that would be the senior head legislator for her district. It's a great model. Unfortunately, like everything, it costs money, and that's that can often be the rub. But I've seen that work in other states too.
Well, I was just looking through here in Louisiana. It's the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs, which I thought was interesting.
And they have that in Florida.
Okay, and then Minnesota, it's the Board on Aging. So again, when I'm bringing this out for the listeners, it might not be a council or anything. It might be under another name, but you always can talk to your Division of Aging or something like that. Right. In Florida, it's a Department of Elder Affairs. Right. Mississippi is a Council on Aging, which I thought was very interesting.
Interesting.
And that maybe that we can get an idea of what they're doing. We can get a call. In New Hampshire, the Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services. So again, we're saying this so you can be aware, as our listeners around the country, doesn't start with the way council or whatever it is. Oregon, seniors and people with disability. These are all state issues here. I'm just looking at South Carolina, Lieutenant Governor's Office on Aging. But it's important, and here it is, Tennessee, Commission on Aging and Disability.
Oftentimes, you have overlapping initiatives with at-risk adults, would be both elderly and also folks living with a disability, and there are a lot of opportunities to work together.
Right, I'm just looking here again, and we're just going to end up here as I go through here. That's the Wyoming Aging Division, Utah Division of Aging and Adult Services. So please, if you have issues, just look and go, look in your state, just start making some calls if you want to get involved. The people who are involved can help change laws and we say tweak them. And tweak them is very important because as you look at these statutes,
a lot of them have a lot of issues that just need a little tweaking to be more readily acceptable by the community.
Yeah.
And that's what you all do. I mean, I know we're on that. We're going to be taking a break here in a few minutes, but we'll discuss about how here dealing with elder issues are brought to the attention of our legislators and our executive staff. Now, I'm not sure that there's that much interaction directly with the state agencies, and I think that's it. I mean, you talk to them. I know we talk to them, but they're pretty much run. They have their own budget and things like that. So we have to go through the legislature to affect that. Is that pretty much a fair statement?
That's true. And in each agency, each department has its own initiatives. Now, we can give you an example of the fingerprinting. I mean, we talked about the need for, caregiver registry, and look at who is currently had elder abuse in their background.
Right.
And that evolved into the Department of Community Health taking that initiative and running it with themselves. So sometimes you can make it work that way, but I have good communication with their individual governmental affairs staff. We try not to be at loggerheads ever.
Right. Well, I think it's it is an issue because sometimes what the government wants to do is not necessarily what from the out in the community wants to do. Well, with that, we'll end our first segment of the Safe Senior Hour, and we'll be back for segment 2.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's DOCS, the number 4, patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
This is Ron Camacho, host of the Business Hour, on Fridays from 10 to 11 a.m. Join me as I talk with passionate professionals on a program that profiles the best businesses, business practices, and fascinating business professionals to get an insider view of how America works. The Business Hour from 10 to 11 a.m. on America's Web Radio.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Well, welcome back to segment 2 of the Safe Senior Hour with Joe Gavalis. We're honored today. We have as our guest the executive director of the Georgia Co-Age, Kathy Floyd, who is a true advocate to, and you have been through your whole life helping seniors and helping address the wrongs that have been going on. We thank you for being here, Kathy. We just had a good segment in the first part going into a little bit about what the different states can do and how they're called by different names, but it's still the whole idea of having people trying to help people.
Right.
I think that's significant. What we wanted to do on this point, you were talking about how you addressed an issue that Georgia, I think is kind of unique, or let me step back, that one of the big issues is trying to figure out in the elder abuse area is for the citizens when they go out to try to hire people to take care of their loved ones, that there is a registry that you can go to. The gold standard by far is Tennessee, and my hat's off to Tennessee. And they've been doing it for like 20, 25 years.
Right.
Very good. And that is done by basically court cases and people reporting and investigation. But Georgia is trying to start, I would say, a pilot program. I don't know where else it's being done. Do you want to go into that? Because you all were supportive of that program.
Well, Georgia is launching their registry as their requirement for fingerprinting launches. And the idea is that anybody that works in a licensed facility, so that is a nursing home, that is assisted living, that's personal care home, that is hospice, home care, then those workers would be fingerprinted. And that way you can tell if they've had prior convictions or not. And as that information is gathered, and it will not tell what the convictions are, it just says yes or no. It will be put in a registry so that when an individual is looking to hire, maybe somebody, terms out of working for assisted living and they go to a home care company, or they're, they find them through various sources, they can check this registry with, no cost and see whether they've been fingerprinted and cleared or not. Now, of course, it's not, you're not going to find everybody, but it's just one more resource, and it is only adjudications. So it does not include substantiated cases like Tennessee. But I think it is, the first step in a good direction.
Well, it is, and the idea of fingerprinting is not unusual. That people are fingerprinted for daycare services.
Right.
Stockbrokers are fingerprinted. I think bankers are.
State employees are fingerprinted.
So, it is a step forward, and I think what Kathy just said, it's not perfect, is absolutely true. It's only as good as people put the input in.
Right.
And and it deals with arrests and hopefully then the adjudication or convictions reported, but not necessarily. So there are people that will look at it if something comes up, but it is a way to help to keep people who have been abusing anybody. It doesn't matter whether it's elderly, child abuse, regular abuse of anybody is wrong, and you don't want them with your loved ones or with people you're looking to take care of.
Right.
We had a horrible situation in Georgia where a woman, I think we talked about it last week, but she was in an assisted living, I think, and the woman had dementia, and she ended up, the caregiver ended up burning her with cigarettes. Horrible situation. But the significance, that woman had several priors and convictions, not just arrests, and the system should have hit that.
Right.
The system today should have hit that. So there are always things are going to fall through the cracks, but we can't let that not try to move forward and get a system to help everybody.
Exactly.
And again, what Kathy said, the important thing is, if you want to try to hire somebody to take care of your mom, or your grandma, or your aunt,
right,
where they're not going to be in a home or whatever it is, an individual. I know in Tennessee you can look on there and say, and they will say what the issue is, whether it be abuse, financial abuse, whatever. So you have an idea of what their conviction or why they're on the list.
Right.
And let me say the list. Everybody out there concerned, wow, we get on a list, how do you get off it? Every person on the list in Tennessee, and I think even Georgia, there'll be an appeals process.
Correct.
Right?
There will be. In the Georgia registry, there will be an appeal process, definitely. One thing I do want to add, you may have a home care aide that is a certified nursing assistant. Only, I don't know if it's something like 30%, 20% of the folks that you look to hire will be, but if they do tell you they're a CNA, a certified nursing assistant, there is a registry in Georgia to check, and that is in the Department of Community Health website. So you can look up if they are a certified nursing assistant and see if they have any history, and those even include substantiated cases. So that is a good a resource for that.
That's just not Georgia. That's under the federal law, and that's what
every state.
They help to fund that. But I will tell you, having worked in the big bureaucracy of the federal government, a lot of times it isn't that easy to get through and try to find out. But if you're persistent, somebody will help you get to the right party, the right area. Tennessee makes it very easy, and again, my hat's off to Tennessee. But I think Kentucky has a good registry. Delaware has a good registry. Mississippi?
Ohio?
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I think that's hopefully that'll help, because that's all we're trying to do is not put any of these very vulnerable loved ones in the hands of somebody that you wouldn't want to be around or be with. It's just sad. But anyway, that's the kind of actions that I know Kathy's group takes, supports, and all that is for the betterment of the seniors. It's not anybody's picked out anybody else. It's just all for how can we help the seniors.
Right.
Your interactions with the legislators, how have you found their attitudes towards fighting or helping seniors and fighting abuse here?
Most of them are very willing to help with the fight for elder abuse. The vast majority, no matter if they're a Democrat, Republican, if they're a senator or representative, they are very willing. And it's because a lot of legislators do their job because out of their passion for making change, making things better. But even if you run into a politician who's, out for themselves, and yes, some of those do exist, they know that seniors vote. And that is a great incentive for a legislature to help out the senior population, because they know that if they can get the word out that they've helped seniors, then that's gonna that's gonna influence voters, and that's something that definitely holds true.
Well, I think that is absolutely right, and I think you remember, to our listeners, when we here on the Safe Senior Hour talk elder abuse, we're talking three types: physical, financial, and institutional. Because when people use the word abuse, they just think of the physical abuse. Right. But there's more to it. The biggest abuse, in fact, a study just came out the other day about older adults are scammed more often by relatives and strangers, and financial abuse is by far the biggest abuse affecting our senior population.
Across the country, for sure.
Right, and it's growing, and our population's growing.
Right.
I thought there was some statistic, and maybe you have a better idea of a better example, but I think it was the state of Minnesota that in the year 2025 will have more people over in a senior status than they will under like 30 or something.
Right.
It was an incredible statistic that shows you how the population is growing and living longer.
Right. And I mean, you can have that too. We can see North Georgia, when you have any area in your state that's attracting retirees, then that area is gonna trend older, and we definitely have that in Georgia, in North Georgia. So it's happening everywhere.
Let me ask you, and we were talking about in the break that your representatives come from all over the state here.
Right.
How do they interact with their regional people, with their citizens? I mean, do they go out? Do they hold meetings? What do they do?
My council members do a wide variety of things. I have 10 consumers and 10 providers. So my providers, for instance, one of my council members is an ombudsman. And so she's working every day. She's an ombudsman in rural Georgia. I think she has something like 12 counties that she covers.
Wow.
And so she's on the road a lot. And she also does provide programs about what the council does. I have a retired member who is my chair, who, Joe, Vicki Johnson, is active, working 4 or 5 days a week on council work in her, in her retirement. The chair of the Georgia Healthcare Association, the Nursing Home Association for Georgia, is on my council. I have a council member who has just opened a brand new assisted living facility in Suwanee, Georgia.
Wow.
Beautiful facility. It has the independent units. It has the assisted living. It has the memory care unit. I really have a wide range of
I think
council
for
members.
our listeners, you got to remember these council members are volunteers.
They're volunteers.
Right. They're not getting paid. This is not a great, a job that you're going to get rich at.
No.
It's because they're mostly all passionate and very concerning about dealing with elder issues.
Right.
Now, how do you get these people together? How do you have your meetings? What do you do?
Well, we currently are having 4 quarterly meetings,
Right.
And we, get together for one day and do all of our planning and setting policy, looking at the budget, all of the different aspects, just like a board meeting for a board of directors, setting policy. And they talk to their individual legislators. They have connections with the leadership in the state, and they are working on senior issues, and it's some of them are more active than others, but it's a great group.
Well, I think that is important, and the idea that they do meet and they do interact out in their communities. But we're going to take a break, end our second segment of the Safe Senior Hour, and when we come back, we'll talk about what some of these meetings are like when the public can come to them. So with that, we'll move on and end our second segment.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mike Karuchak. Have you ever wondered what doctors talk about amongst themselves? If you do, join us on the Doctor's Lounge and hear the doctors' conversations amongst themselves. Join me and my co-host, Dr. Hal Schertz, every Thursday morning, 8 to 9 a.m.
45 years of experience is behind the most trusted name in auto transportation. Passport Transport, the first and finest today. That's why Passport Transport is the preferred auto transport for major auto manufacturers, concours, museums, tours, and collectors, and should be your choice from across the state to across the country. When you have the need, go to PassportTransport.com and enjoy the peace of mind referenced experience will give you. Passport Transport.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Well, welcome back to our third segment of the Safe Senior Hour. Again, remember, elder abuse does not report itself. And if you have any comments or thoughts that you would like to bring out to the station, you can get us at safe@americaswebradio.com. So with that, we'll go back to our guest, Kathy Floyd, the Executive Director of COAGE here in Atlanta. And we've been discussing how this volunteer organization, or 99% volunteer organization, works in order to bring people from all over our state. For the people who are not familiar with Georgia, Georgia is the biggest state east of the Mississippi, so it covers a vast geographic area. And as we know, and our listeners know from our discussions, the targeting of potential victims by these professional scammers has been rural areas, just because they feel law enforcement and that people aren't getting the message out. And if you remember what we said last week, was that there were over 1 million attempts to perpetrate the one ring scam, where it was your phone rings one time and then it leaves a number, and people who are very susceptible to say, well, who was it, they call back and they dial the number, and the number a lot of times is the area code is only three numbers, so you don't think it's a foreign one. It's like the Caribbean or somewhere, but the cost is amazing, and it's billed on your cell bill or your phone bill. And these people, if they do 1 million attempts, all they have to do is hit, one out of every 1,000, I guess, and they'll get rich. But anyway, so we made that, we need to make people aware of this so they don't fall into these scams. We'll go back to Kathy now on talking about the council. We talked about councils. The local representatives interact locally in their different regions. They're all volunteers, and they bring this knowledge back to you and when the council meets. But they're also, you do some other things to communicate and interact with the public. What are those?
Right. We are very proud. We are the ones that convene Senior Week at the Capitol, where we bring seniors from all over the state to the Capitol to talk to their legislators about the issues that are important to them. The council has been doing this for 30 plus years.
Wow.
It's
that's great.
We've actually had to cut off the attendance because the building authority has told us we can only do 300 a day, and so we do that. We do that every February, and it's very popular. The seniors really enjoy it, and it connects them with their legislators, and that is one of the ways that we are able to impact legislation and build that relationship with legislators. And we also hold public meetings. In April, we have what we call Engage with COAGE, which this year we had 32 sessions around the state, over 1,000 attendees.
Wow.
And we have our members partner with us and put on these sessions. And these sessions are a little less than an hour, and we update the seniors on what happened at the legislature. and then look for issues for going forward. In July, we have a big public meeting in the middle of the state in Macon. Generally have about 140 seniors show up and senior advocates. And then in October, we have our education meeting where we talk about the issues and give seniors the materials that they need to talk to their legislators. Your members of Congress get a lot of attention, and they get input from consumers, but your state legislators don't generally get a lot. And so you can make a difference if they get 5 emails or phone calls on an issue. That will perk up their ears, and they'll figure out, okay, what's going on with this? And so your numbers to make a difference are much smaller at the state level. And I would urge you to get to know, your state or local elected official, because they are anxious to hear what people are thinking about and talking about.
We were discussing it earlier that it is amazing that our legislators are there to make laws, change laws, remove laws, and when you talk to them, and of course we focus in on the task force on elder abuse issues, when we have them come to a meeting and listen to what is going on in their community, in their district, not what's necessarily happening all over the world, and as we go out and we tell people, when we discuss these, for example, in the financial world, these professional scams, these aren't scams that are going on in New York or Chicago or the big cities or in downtown Atlanta. These are happening all over and in these districts, and they've come out of the meetings just totally, number one, amazed at the hardships that seniors are going through, and realizing that they can have an input to help. And it's you with the council, and I know in that state working group, where we can bring up issues to them of what needs to be done. And I think, as you just explained, Kathy, talk to your representatives, right? State whether it's a state rep or a state senator.
Right. I mean,
they want to hear it.
They definitely want to hear it, because if you make the effort to talk to them, they know that there are numerous other folks that thought about it, just didn't put the effort into contacting them. And so if you give them a local issue that they can champion, then that's something they can talk about the next election. And it's just a circular equation that you really can have an impact.
Well, and again, just take politics out of it. Everybody, I would venture, 98%, either they've had a issue with some kind of abuse, remember, physical, financial, or institutional, with one of their loved ones, or they know somebody that has. It's not like you're talking about something that never happens. So when you bring an issue up, they will listen. And you remember, our representatives and state senators, in every state, almost every state, this is not their full-time job.
Right.
They live in the community.
Right. Exactly.
And they'll see it. So if you see them, they'll be glad to talk to you. I've never had somebody slush you off. Is that the word? Or flush you, whatever the term is, flush you off, where they say, no, I can't talk to you, unless they're going to a meeting. But they'll say, call me later.
Right. I'll share with you, Joe, the first big elder abuse bill that Georgia, with this, because we've had a number of years now where we've been really leading the country with good elder abuse legislation. I believe it was 2012, and that was House Bill 78. Representative Wendell Willard, represented this area right where we're sitting. And in the House, when it came up for a vote, there was only one vote against it. And that's the thing about elder abuse. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side on elder abuse. You work out a lot of the details, the legal stuff in committee, and then when it came to the House. Now, let me tell you about that fella that voted against it. A very good attorney, elder law attorney, used that against him the next election and beat him.
Really?
So he suffered for having that no vote. And the elder law that replaced him is now an excellent legislator.
Well, it's as I said, everybody's aware of it. It affects them, but I don't think anybody really is aware of the extent that takes place out there. And remember, elderly people. We talk about why are we addressing it? Why are the scammers? Why are the relatives doing it? Because people have been very trusting.
Right.
Growing up, our generation.
Right.
Number one. Number two, and they've saved a little bit of money.
Right.
A little bit of money could mean $500 or $200 to some people, but it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in a retirement plan.
It may just be, using their Social Security check instead of them getting it. So, just their Social Security benefit can attract somebody to scam them out of it.
And it's fact that Georgia, just one of the first states that we've made under the exploitation law, they've changed it, where trafficking in humans for their money. Now that's for their benefits, basically, is it?
Right.
Because we've had people go and see, the unfortunate people that might be down and out that just get a measly Social Security check or a veterans benefits check or food stamps, that they'll pick these people up, sign them in, get control of that little bit of money, or get the, for example, the food stamps issued, and then they just take them and then misuse them, and then give these people alleged place to stay, and alleged some of these conditions are horrible. Some of them are good, but some of them are horrible. So this trafficking for benefits, Georgia put a law in.
Right, and I know that it has already been used in 2 cases so far. And, what's involved here is you've got a prosecutor that's looking to charge a number of different charges, because what you're trying to do is, stop this person from doing it again. And so this is another charge that's been added, and they've already prosecuted 2 cases with this. And it's just shameful when they raid some of these places and they've got this stack of cards, and that's, so their Social Security card, their EBT card, that's the value for them, and they stuff them in substandard conditions and feed them or not feed them, and it's just shameful.
I know in one of the cases here that EBT cards are what you used to call food stamps.
Right.
And now they're cards, and they get access to them, and I remember one of the investigations, they followed them. That card was sold for a percentage on the dollar and was being used in South Carolina.
Right.
And when it was issued to a gentleman in Georgia who was living in a unlicensed personal care home. So you can see it's a domino effect, and we can be very thankful here in Georgia. The law has kind of kept up with this, because they'll listen to groups, they'll listen to people who do this, and who do this for a living, that fight elder abuse, and say you need to make the changes. So I think we're lucky here in Georgia that we have that, and we can see changes being taking place all around the United States. Well, with that, we're going to end our 3rd segment of the Safe Senior Hour, and we'll be back shortly.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
This is Ron Camacho, host of the Business Hour, on Fridays from 10 to 11 a.m. Join me as I talk with passionate professionals on a program that profiles the best businesses, business professionals, business practices, and fascinating individuals to get an insider view of how America works. 10 to 11 a.m. on America's Web Radio.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's DOCS, the number 4, patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Well, welcome back to the final segment of the Safe Senior Hour with Joe Gavalis. And we are very fortunate today to have Kathy Floyd, the Executive Director of the Georgia Co-Age, with us. And Kathy, we appreciate you coming today and,
Joe, thank you.
And giving us your insight and trying to help educate people on your passion, that's helping seniors.
Definitely.
And your lifelong career has shown that. Let me just ask, I think we talked about before, and there's another service you do, and people can go on the internet and get their newsletter.
Right. We have several communication forms that we use. We do a monthly newsletter and then a weekly newsletter.